Come here. Not you, Harry. Did you know PetSmart?
Hey, 'Cause I know you. 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 'Cause I Thank you.
watch some videos about the problem of induction.
A friend who's in liquor production has a still of astounding construction. The alcohol boils through magnetic coils. He says that it's proof by induction. Human beings are, for better or worse, stuck in a subjective experience of the world that can vary in important ways from person to person. We all generally agree that there's something out there.
Motherfucker.
Beings are, for better or worse, stuck in a subjective experience of the world that can vary in important ways from person to person. We all generally agree that there's something out there that we can all touch and experience in our own unique ways. But how much of that experience is us, and how much
is
of
this
it
kinda
is
like
actually
soulism?
out there? That's harder. Accessing truth is something that we all do, or think that we do, all the time, using all sorts of different methods that we can choose to trust more or less. Than the others. There's philosophical rationalism, where the truth is revealed if you reason hard enough. There's religious faith, where the truth is revealed through revelation, dogma, or holy texts. There's intuition, or trusting your gut. If you're watching Thunk, you probably trust the claims of science and scientists a great deal, even knowing that the romanticized ideal of science conflicts with the mundane reality of spending years staring at columns of data in Excel while worrying about funding. But in some debates where somebody is disagreeing with scientific consensus, whether they're anti-vaxxers or creationists or climate change deniers, I've heard some proponents of science assert that it's 100% objective, that unlike other methods of accessing truth, it's a perfect abstraction of logic and evidence that's totally free of any bias or subjectivity. Well, not really. Most implementations of the modern scientific method make a number of important assumptions that are, on some level, arbitrary. Whether or not they're as arbitrary as assuming that your gut is never wrong is up for debate. But they are still assumptions, and they are still arbitrary, and knowing what they are is an important part of understanding science and its operation. For example, in order to do science, one has to make an implicit assumption of naturalism. That is to say that all phenomena are caused by natural causes, not supernatural ones. This is why papers entitled Thermal Fluctuation in Transport and Type II Superconductors, or Maybe Fairies Are Playing with Our Gauges, don't get published. That assumption isn't logically bulletproof, but it is necessitated by science's requirement of experimental repeatability. If the data that you're collecting today is subject to the whims of some supernatural entity, which you can't measure or control for, who's to say they won't be totally different tomorrow? That's not to say that someone can't be a good scientist and still believe in the supernatural outside of the lab. It's just that when they're doing science, they generally must make the assumption of purely natural causes. There's also a general assumption of the universal homogeneity of physical laws, that the rules which govern the things in your experiment are just as applicable outside the lab, that they're relatively unchanged by time or space. I mean, science would be pretty unremarkable if all it did was tell you things that happened in labs, and that's not just because a full day of pipetting is really boring. There's another assumption that science makes which isn't really intuitively obvious just because we take it for granted so often in our lives. Induction. Induction is the process of recognizing patterns and then generalizing those patterns into rules, and it's generally considered to be a foundational component of scientific research. It's also a problem, so much so that there is a capitalized problem of induction. Let's say that you have 2 billiard balls on a pool table. You roll the first one into the second one 100 times, and each time the first one stops and the second one starts moving. You'd probably say that the first ball's motion starts the second ball rolling, and that other billiard balls will behave in the same fashion. You might even write an equation to describe how the second ball will move. The capital P problem, most notably raised by David Hume, is that no matter how many times we see that same sequence of events, there's no concrete reason to expect it to repeat. You've probably heard that correlation doesn't imply causation, but unfortunately, Nothing necessitates it. We can't see causation. It isn't some substance that we can interact with. We can only see one event followed by another event and hope that they keep on happening in that sequence in the future. Maybe on the 101st trial, the first ball reverses direction or vanishes altogether. There's no guarantee that those things won't happen. We're just guessing that they won't. And unfortunately, we can't say that induction just happens to be right a lot of the time and justify it that way, because it's using induction to justify induction. That's a problem, at least for philosophers, and especially for philosophers of science. Without a concrete justification for induction, all of the capital T truths that we think we know due to science are really just hypotheses waiting to get knocked over by one contrary observation. And that's kind of the reality of the situation. When CERN announced the existence of the Higgs boson, some people celebrated the discovery as though somebody at CERN had grabbed one with a pair of really good tweezers and held it.
Isn't that where they were like the
But
Hydro
in
Collider?
reality, in order to establish the existence of the Higgs, CERN had to use some very sensitive equipment. And in the paper announcing the discovery, there was a value, the same value that's in many modern scientific papers, which stated the odds that the data that they hoped represented the Higgs was just a fluke. I mean, this is one of the most significant discoveries in physics to date, and it's got this asterisk attached to it that says there's still a 1 in 3.5 million chance that if there were no Higgs, we'd still have gotten these results. It's not a certainty, it's still just a guess. So, science makes a number of arbitrary assumptions, not unlike other methods for accessing truth. And because of the problem of induction, we can't even be sure that the things that we supposedly know due to science are actually true. They're just more probable than not. Why is it so popular? Well, because it's remarkably successful. Despite the fact that science isn't some perfect objective entity abstract from human thought, despite the fact that scientists aren't any less prone to bias than anybody else, despite the fact that scientific discoveries are just statistical likelihoods, not necessarily true, science is still way better than any contender at making very accurate, very specific, and very risky predictions. Out of all of the methods which people use to access truth, science isn't different because it's perfectly objective or free from assumptions. There's just as many assumptions in science as anything else. But those arbitrary assumptions still seem to be the best ones that we have for saying there will be an eclipse at this time, or if you smash these particles together at this speed, then you'll see an energy spike at this frequency, and that's the Higgs boson. Probably. Whether that's because they're more accurate than other assumptions about the universe, or because they're just better suited for making accurate predictions, that's a different question. Whether someone wants to accept those assumptions as actually true, or just necessary for getting stuff like medicine and computers, that's their call. But I've at least got to respect the fact that out of all of the methods of accessing truth available to me, only scientists can even venture a guess at how many inches of snow I'm going to have to shovel off of my driveway. Do you think that the assumptions inherent to science are true or just necessary? Do you live on Long Island and want to lend me a snowblower? Please leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to blah blah subscribe blah share. And don't stop thunking.
Hey Transplay Nerds, it's your favorite part of every session, you guessed it, sponsor Connie. If you play TTRPGs,
So, without further ado, let's go straight on to induction. You'll see that here there are a lot of things in common with the material we've just covered. So some of that I shall go over quite quickly. However, the handout aims to be relatively self-contained so that you can look at it separately. The people shown here, well, we've got David Hume on the left, Sir Peter Strawson, who was at Magdalen for many years, and I think started out at University College. So he's very much an Oxford man.
All right, this is
Hugh
going
Mellor,
too slow.
until recently professor at Cambridge, and Nelson Goodman, famous author of the Goodman paradox. Now, the main historical reading that you will get on induction is David Hume's Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding, section 4. And the discussion there starts with a vital distinction, a very, very important distinction, and one that has remained of tremendous importance, though its exact formulation has changed over the years. Hume draws a distinction between relations of ideas and matters of fact. Well, what's a relation of ideas? Well, think, for example, of this
Motherfucker.
proposition here. All bachelors are unmarried. Okay, so we've got certain ideas, like the idea of a bachelor, the idea of being unmarried. And we can see, just by looking at the nature of those ideas,
Fucking A.
what we understand by them. What do we understand by a bachelor? Well,
I
an
got
unmarried
fucked
man.
earlier in
If
this.
that is our idea of a bachelor,
in this
then we
game.
can see, just by consulting our own ideas, that all bachelors must be unmarried. 3 times 5 equals half of 30. That's one of Hume's examples. Simply by examining our ideas of 3 and 5 and multiplication, etc.,
3 times 5
we can
equals
again
half
see
of
that that is
30.
true.
Instead of just saying that it
complicated example,
equals
Pythagoras.
15.
It seems that the proof of Pythagoras' theorem comes pretty much from just consulting the ideas of a Euclidean triangle, the axioms of Euclidean geometry,
Fuck.
and simply doing inferences from those. So these kinds of propositions are for Hume relations of ideas. The more modern term is analytic propositions, ones that can be known, if you like, purely by analysing the meaning of the terms. And Hume draws a distinction between relations of ideas and matters of fact. Now, matters of fact are things that we cannot know to be true or false simply by consulting our ideas. So he gives examples like the sun will rise tomorrow, the sun will not rise tomorrow. Those are things that we cannot know to be true or to be false just by thinking about our ideas of what the sun is. If we take a pen, hold it in the air, and let
And
go of
drop it. It's going to
before
fall.
it's fallen,
He's
the
going to
proposition
say that
it will fall when released
it might
is a
not.
matter of fact. It doesn't follow from the idea of a pen, from what we understand by a
Okay.
pen, from what we understand by releasing it in air. It's not a matter of logic that the pen must fall. It's a matter of fact. So the modern term for that is a synthetic proposition, a proposition whose truth is determined by the facts of experience rather than what we mean. So this raises a natural question. Some matters of fact we can know to be true, or we think we can know to be true just by perceiving them. I can perceive that there's a lectern directly in front of me. So let's not worry about that. I can remember that it rained last week. I'm not going to worry about that. What about matters of fact that I don't directly perceive and that I don't remember? How can I possibly know anything about those? And now we come to that example that's been mentioned before of the billiard balls. Paradigm example of a matter of fact. I see a yellow billiard ball moving towards a red one. I suppose that when they touch, the red one will move. But that it will move is not a relation of ideas. It cannot be known to be true just by consulting my ideas of billiard balls and movement. It's a matter of fact. And I can't see now that it's going to move, and I clearly can't remember its movement because we're talking about something in the future. So it's just an example of the kind of matter of fact that Hume is talking about.
Okay.
So why do I suppose that the red one will move when the yellow one hits it?
Play a different
According
game.
to Hume, the only way we can ever draw any inference to a matter of fact which we don't either see or remember is by relying on causal relations. So then we get to this famous thought experiment. There's Adam, as painted by Michelangelo. Adam's just been created by God. He sees one billiard ball moving towards another. Put yourself in his position.
Yeah, I guess he
No
wouldn't know
experience
what
at
would
all to
happen.
fall on. You've never seen anything like this. You are asked to predict what will happen when the first ball meets the second one. How could you possibly proceed? According to Hume, as we've seen, you couldn't. You would have no idea what was going to happen. Maybe when that ball hits that one, it will just stop. Maybe it will explode. Maybe it'll go right through it. Maybe it'll turn into a frog. Who knows?
Maybe he'll
Without
turn into a
experience,
frog.
You have no basis for any prediction. So that means that any inference to a matter of fact beyond what we perceive or remember seems, if Hume's right, to be based on assumptions of causality. And all our knowledge of causal relations, such as with the billiard balls, comes from experience. Without experience, we can't make any predictions about what will cause what. And it seems clear that learning from experience takes for granted that observed phenomena, things that we've seen in the past, do provide a guide of at least some reliability to what's going to happen in the future. So it seems that in order to make any prediction about the future, we have to take for granted, or we have to have some basis, for extrapolation from our experience to the future, because experience is our only guide. Well, here's a passage from a letter from a gentleman to his friend in Edinburgh that Hume wrote in 1745. The context of this was that Hume was applying for a chair in moral philosophy at Edinburgh, and the clergy at Edinburgh were very much against him because they thought his treatise of human nature was atheistic. And so he wrote a letter trying to explain how the treatise wasn't nearly as bad as people thought it was. It's not exactly clear how much of this letter we should take as entirely ingenuous. Some of it might possibly be suspected of somewhat glossing over the truth. But at any rate, in that letter, he explained part of the background to his epistemological thinking. It is common for philosophers to distinguish the kinds of evidence into intuitive, demonstrative, sensible, and moral. When Hume talks about intuitive evidence, that is intuition, like Locke, he means something that is immediately self-evident. So, for example, that something is identical with itself. I am identical with me. 2 is greater than 1. These are things I can know to be true just self-evidently.
Okay.
By sensible evidence, Hume means sensory evidence, the evidence of the senses. Demonstrative evidence, well, that's demonstration, logical argument. And by moral evidence, Hume means inductive reasoning, reasoning from experience. It's very important when you read the inquiry, notice that when Hume uses the word moral, he does not mean ethical in the sense that you or I would mean by moral. So moral reasoning is reasoning about the world. So here, Hume is drawing on Locke. We've seen before how Locke draws this distinction between demonstrative and probable reasoning. And we saw that for Locke, both types of reasoning involve a rational perception of the links. So Locke's view of demonstrative and probable reasoning, or demonstrative and moral reasoning, is that in one case, when we reason from one step to another in our chain of reasoning, we see a clear, evident connection from one step to the next. In probable or moral reasoning, when we reason from past experience, according to Locke, we see evidential connections, but they're only probable connections, not demonstrative ones. Okay, with that background, let's go back to Hume's question. We want to know why the second billiard ball will move when the first touches it. We think that the only ground of such an inference is causation. We think that the only way we can learn about causation is from past experience. And we want to know what ground we have for extrapolating from past experience to the future, for expecting that the causal laws, if you like, that applied in the past will apply in the future. What ground have we got? Well, is it self-evident? No, it isn't. Can it be demonstrated? Can you produce a logical proof that what's happened in the past will happen in the future? No, you can't, because we can perfectly coherently conceive of it not happening. Do we have sensory knowledge? Can we see through our senses that what has happened in the past will happen in the future? Clearly not. What about factual inference? What about ordinary day-to-day, inductive moral reasoning? No, because that is the very kind of reasoning that we're considering. We're asking ourselves whether it is possible to extrapolate from past to future legitimately. So relying on that kind of reasoning, to justify our relying on that kind of reasoning, would be going in a circle. So here I give a very brief review of the argument of the inquiry. I'm not going to go through this now in detail, but when you come to Hume's text, take a look at these slides and use them to inform your reading of these passages. That's a summary of the part 1 argument, where Hume says that all factual inference is founded on experience. It follows that all factual inference has to be based on an assumption of uniformity, the assumption that what has happened in the past is a guide to what will happen in the future. And then we get the proof that we have no ground for making that assumption. So it seems, as we said before, that all of our reasoning about the world, all of the reasoning by which we reach any matter of fact at all, beyond those we immediately perceive or remember, is based on an assumption of uniformity, an assumption that what we have experienced is a reliable guide to what we haven't experienced. And if Hume is right, that assumption is based on nothing at all other than animal instinct. There is no rational basis for it whatever. And that's the famous Humean skepticism about induction. It's been an inspiration to huge numbers of philosophers of science. It was seen by many as a complete crisis, by some as an opportunity. The kind of philosophy of science that you find in Popper, to some extent in Kuhn, and many, many other philosophers of science takes its start from Hume's results. Popper, for example, tried to give an account of science which in no way depended on induction, because he thought that Hume had completely undermined that basis. As I've said, it seems to imply that our human reason, that we tend to be so proud of, is actually different from animal reasoning only in degree. It's not fundamentally different in kind. The sort of supposed perception of probable connections that Locke had thought was the basis of human reasoning turns out to be wishful thinking. There is no such perception. When we think that we have insight into the way physical things behave, at bottom there is this assumption of uniformity which is based on no insight whatever. And our understanding of causation is not really based on intelligibility. It's based on observation of uniformity. Now, I'm not going to say very much about Hume's particular view of this, but just very briefly, does it imply a complete irrationalist point of view? If you go with Hume on this, does it follow that anything goes? That there is no difference between the scientist and the superstitious enthusiast who bases predictions about the future on the shape of the tea leaves in his teacup, or on tarot cards, or astrology, or any other superstition you care to mention? Well, Hume didn't think so. He did deny that inductive inference is founded on rational insight, but he didn't want to say that therefore anything goes. But that raises a major problem of demarcation. And again, this is a problem that has echoed down the centuries since. What right do we have for preferring scientific reasoning to superstitious reasoning if the ultimate ground of scientific reasoning is just an animal instinct? So we have animal instincts to be scared of certain things, or to have certain superstitions. why should we give any less respect to those than we give to our animal instinct that underlies science? Well, Hume's answer is basically to favour consistency. Hume wants to say that everything we do in life is based on the assumption that we can learn from experience and that the future will conform to the past. We can't even wake up in the morning, wash, go out the door, eat our breakfast without making assumptions that the behaviour of things in the past is a guide to their behaviour in the future. Even the entirely superstitious person has to rely in almost everything that they do on that assumption of uniformity and systematic behaviour. So Hume's answer is to say, well, in that case, the rational thing to do is to accept that. Accept that we are part of nature, accept that this assumption is one that we simply cannot live without, and now follow through the consequences. And if you follow through the consequences,
Sweet.
if you remain faithful to that assumption that the basic laws by which nature works are consistent over time, since you have to assume it in your daily life, why not make that the model? And then try and systematize what you discover about the world in conformity with that. That is where science comes from. And according to Hume, it gives a reliable basis for preferring science to superstition. But it does mean that our attempts to understand the world are reduced to the kind of thing that Newton did in the case of gravitation. The utmost effort of human reason is to reduce the principles productive of natural phenomena to a greater simplicity, and to resolve the many particular effects into a few general causes. But as to the causes of these general causes, we in vain attempt their discovery. So we have to make do with a science in which the ultimate principles are ones that we just have to accept. And as I've suggested in the case of quantum mechanics, that is in fact where we are. If you now look at what Hume has to say about science, a lot of it will look like common sense. At the time, it was very far from common sense, and it's a mark of how far we've come that we now accept that the ultimate principles of science are ones that we cannot hope to base on pure reason. Okay, the last few slides, I'm just going to summarize very quickly. Many people have attempted to answer Hume in all sorts of different ways. All I'm trying to give here is a little roadmap so that you can see where some of these attempts fit in. To discuss them with any sort of depth would require at least another lecture or two, so I shall not attempt to do that. One way of trying to answer Hume is to show that actually induction can be justified by pure reason, but by appeal to probability rather than demonstration. Here are some of the famous names of those who've tried to do this, including Simon Blackburn and John Mackey, both Oxford philosophers in their time, Roy Harrod. Other attempts to answer Hume include the so-called analytic justification of induction. This is associated particularly with Peter Strawson. The claim is that induction is rational by definition. When we think of what is a rational way to behave, basing your assumptions about the future on the past just is rational. To assume that what happened in the past is a reliable guide to the future, that is just what the rational person does. How can we make sense of rational behavior which didn't do that? And so the claim is that induction, no skeptical problem can be raised about induction in the way that Hume was thought to do. Some philosophers have argued that induction can be justified by its past success. Inductive reasoning has always worked very well for us. It's worked in the past, should work in the future, shouldn't it? And the pragmatic justification of induction, attempts have been made to show that even if we cannot justify relying on induction by pure reason, we have pragmatic reason for doing so, practical reason.
What a dumb fuck.
Briefly, I don't think any of these answers really hit Hume very strongly. He would agree that we describe induction as a rational way of behaving. He himself advocates that we rely on it. An inductive justification does just seem circular. It seems pretty obviously circular. I think ultimately it pretty clearly is circular. The pragmatic justification doesn't touch Hume's position, because Hume himself, after all, says that we irresistibly, inevitably assume that the future will resemble the past. Anyone who comes along to me with a pragmatic justification of induction, who tries to preach to me and tell me why I should rely on it, is wasting his time. I'm already bound to rely on it. It's the way I am. The only question is whether I will rely on it consistently. And finally, I end with a couple of slides on Hugh Mellor and on Nelson Goodman. I'm not going to attempt to bring those into the discussion here. I've put them there because they are amongst the reading that you will get on this topic, and I hope that what I've written there will help you to assimilate those into the general framework that I've given you. Next time, we carry on with more topics on general philosophy. See you then.
Dear Sam, I've been on 73 OkCupid dates, and I've gotten my hopes up for each and every one. They've all bombed. Each girl seems to find a new and creative way to say, "It's not me, it's you." Many leave during the appetizer. Other times I commit a huge unforced error, like when I laughed out loud at her alma mater. I just can't seem to get it right. I've been thinking of giving up altogether. Is there any conceivable reason to go on another date, or am I a lost cause? Yours, Anthony. Ouch, ouch, ouch. I think for this I've got to introduce you to a Scottish friend of mine. He's a philosopher, and his name is David Hume. Now, technically, the guy's been dead for like 240 years, but I think you'll find he's a lot more helpful than most people alive, that's for sure. I think what you're dealing with, Anthony, is a problem of induction. It goes something like this. Experience grounds our beliefs about things that haven't happened yet. The past informs our view of the future. It is totally normal for us to think that all members of a certain class that have so far been similar will continue to be so. This is just how we make normal, standard, day-to-day predictions. For instance, I've met a lot of creationists in my life. And every time I meet a creationist, I feel like I've got to talk a little slower, just a little simpler, you know?
Fuck off.
And so it's fair for me to assume that every creationist I will meet and have yet to meet, I will also have to speak just a little bit clearer, just to really make it simple. That's
This
just
guy's a
standard
cunt.
induction. But what reason do we have to think that future unobserved events will be like past experiences? I mean, how can we justify induction? Well, rather awkwardly, we're not really able to do so without further reference to past induction. For instance, say I put my hand into a big pot boiling water. How do I know that's going to hurt? Because I've done it before. I've done it like 50 times before, and it hurts every goddamn time I put my hand in a lot of boiling water. It's terribly, terribly painful. But the reasoning is circular, you see? How do I justify inductive reasoning? By reference to past experiences of inductive reasoning. That's circular. That doesn't give you anything. There's no foundation there. And this is basically the problem of induction.
Is this guy
We can
gonna
never
do
say
anything? What the fuck?
that future unobserved events will continue to resemble the past. But we do. We think like that, normally, because of habit. That's what David Hume said, just because of plain old habit. And now Hume was pretty unnerved by this idea. I mean, it's pretty strange. He wanted to find a reason to think that induction works, that it was reliable, that the future will resemble the past.
What the fuck?
But he couldn't. And so he offered a really nice solution to this one, which I happily will take up. Go outside, relax, maybe pour a glass of something that does give a bit of certainty. But to me, the problem of induction isn't really problematic in that sense. I mean, it's not scary or unnerving, it's enthralling, because it's a reminder of the uncertainty that life holds. And Anthony, this should be especially enthralling for you, because it means that your unblemished record of abject failure may be coming to an end. Because 73 dates is a large but limited sample size. And you don't know what the 74th date will hold. It could be goddamn terrible. It could be the worst of your many, many dates. Or not. You don't know. That's the point. So you've got to keep going. You've got to keep trying. And if the problem of induction suggests that we can't know with absolute certainty if the sun
Is he
will
gonna
rise
try to
tomorrow,
take the...
then there's absolutely no way, Anthony, that you
Yeah.
know when you're going to meet the right girl. But just to increase the odds a little bit, personal hygiene, some listening skills, and occasionally picking up the check from time to time. Why not? Thanks, and I hope this helps.
Yeah, that guy.
Mobile games are going big with Google Play Games. Build your deck in Clash Royale and battle against players on a larger screen. Download and play today.
Do you want to grow your YouTube channel? Do you want to earn more views, more subscribers, more watch time, and of course, make more money? Well, it might be time for you to upgrade to TubeBuddy Pro. Sadly, while a lot of people start YouTube channels, many never reach the success that they dream of. Why? Well, there's so much you want to do on your YouTube channel, but it's very easy to get bogged down in details and not focus on the important parts, making great videos that people want to watch. You might already know about the free version of TubeBuddy. It's packed with more than 30 free tools to make it easier for you to navigate and grow your YouTube channel. But today, I'm talking about TubeBuddy Pro, an upgraded version that includes unlimited access to our mobile app and other great features that help you use our tools so you can take your YouTube channel to the next level. Now you might be wondering, but Andrew, how is an upgraded TubeBuddy license gonna get me more views on YouTube? In order to get more views, you need to understand.
Today we're going to be looking at something called the problem of induction. Now what we're looking for here is knowledge, true, certain knowledge. And in order to get to this goal, I'm going to try to present this problem in a very impartial and unbiased manner. One more admonition before we get started. This is a basic introduction to the problem of induction. If you want something more rigorous or challenging, check out the problem of induction on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Generally a good place to start most philosophical investigations. You can also check out, for a new twist, The New Riddle of Induction by Nelson Goodman, and I would be remiss if I did not mention An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding by David Hume. With that out of the way, let's get started. First, we're going to look at our project here at Carneades.org, which is to doubt principles and test some of our most closely held beliefs. The belief that we're testing today is the belief that science can guarantee knowledge, true, infallible knowledge. Can we know things that are proven by science? And do they stand up to our high bar for knowledge? Well, let's see. Now, who's this a problem for? This is a problem for people who believe in induction. Induction is the idea that if you have a bunch of specific claims, you can, from those claims, draw a conclusion about something more general, or about the future. Let's take a look at what that looks like in terms of the scientific method. If you do experiment X and get result Y once, you do experiment X and get result Y over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, eventually, you should be able to conclude that experiment X will give you, or will always give you, result Y. Let's take a look at something more concrete. Imagine we have an urn. An urn we can't see into. We reach into this urn, and we pull out a black ball. We reach into the urn again, and we pull out another black ball. We reach into the urn a third time, and we pull out a black ball. We want to, from this, make a conclusion. We can draw the strong conclusion that the next ball will be black. We can also draw a weaker conclusion that it's likely that the next ball will be black. Today, in this video, we're going to deal with the strong conclusion, and later we're going to check out the weak conclusion in another video. To support the strong claim, we have that all the balls so far have been black, and we want to conclude that the next ball will be black. In order to do this, we have to go from the past to the future. In order to have a valid argument means that true premises will guarantee a true conclusion, we need to have something along the lines of the future will resemble the past. Well, what support can be provided for that claim? Let's see. We want to conclude that the future will resemble the past. So far, the future so far has resembled the past. If you want to think about this in terms of the balls, after we drew out the first black ball, the next one resembled it, and the next one after that. The future, from that point of view, resembled the past, the ball we had already pulled out. That's a claim about what's already happened. What we want to conclude is a claim about what's going to happen in the future, that the future will resemble the past. The problem is, to get this argument working and off the ground, once again, we need a bridge from the past to the future, and the only thing we can do that is a version of the future will resemble the past. Uh-oh. That looks like begging the question, because one of our premises is our conclusion, and that is a fallacy. It's a logical fallacy, and it doesn't work for arguments. Let's see why. Imagine I wanted to conclude that Carneades.org is the best website ever. I might have as a premise, Carneades.org is the best website ever. Technically, this is a valid argument. If the premise is true, the conclusion has to be true, because they're the same statement. But it's only trivially valid, and it's not going to convince anyone. Now, this, I believe, can tell us we can cross out that strong claim. The next ball will be black. In fact, there was a chance, looking at the bottom of that urn, that the next ball will be red. So it wasn't a good claim to begin with anyway. Let's take a look at how this claim will apply to something that's a little more scientific in nature. Think about a sunrise. The strong claim here is that the sun will rise tomorrow. The weak claim is that it's likely
The sun
the
will rise tomorrow.
Now, to support the strong claim, we have the fact that the sun has risen every day till now. And our conclusion wants to be the sun will rise tomorrow. The problem is, once again, we're going from the past to the future. And the only way we know to do that is through some version of the future will resemble the past. But unfortunately, the only way we can support the future will resemble the past is through circular logic. This means it's a no-go. So, some final conclusions. If someone gives you a strong claim about science, something that says that science can tell you something that is 100% undeniably true, I would argue you should suspend judgment. In terms of the weak claim that things could be probable based on science, well, we'll take a look in the next video, so stay tuned. If you have any scientific claims that you believe can stand up to this argument, submit them at Carneades.org. Stay skeptical, everyone.
At Amazon Freight, we know the only thing better than having a friend with a truck is having a friend.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brent Cooper. I'm very excited about this episode because I think it's positively ridiculous that I have not talked about this story until now. Like, absolutely insane. I can't believe that I have not. Even if you guys are not as online as I am sure that you have all seen The Crazy Plane Lady. And that is what we're talking about today. We're doing an update. We're doing a full recap because I never talked about it. And I really, really want to. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, if you're super, super not online, it's the lady on the plane who's like,
What the fuck are you talking about?
You're not real, man.
So obviously that video trended for weeks on end, and it sparked many, many, many controversies about what she saw, why she hasn't spoken out, who she is, where she went, all of that. And I thought that when she finally came forward to talk, we'd get all of our questions questions answered. I was excited for a very cool comment section episode about it. But somehow, now that she's speaking publicly about the whole thing, I am 10 times more confused, and I wonder if you guys are feeling the same way.
I am dead inside.
Before we dive into this story, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section or off-the-clock episode. All right, so to refresh you all, here is the original video that started it all. So to add to the conspiracies, I was going to try to watch the original TikTok, and it was sent to me by one of my producers back in the States. Apparently, I'm not allowed to watch it. I'm hungry. It says it's not allowed in this country or region. So conspiracy level times 10. But here, we're going to play the original video. Watch it now.
I'm telling you, I'm getting the f off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the f off, and everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two f***s, but I am telling you right now,
That motherfucker is not real.
back there is not real. And you can sit
Bro,
on
what the
plane
fuck
and
was she talking
dive
about?
with them or not. I'm not going to.
So now I'm sure you guys remember it. You saw it everywhere. She even went on Jesse Waters. Like, she has been deep on TikTok, also in mainstream media. We've been talking about this lady for a while now. Somebody commented under that TikTok and said, everybody looking back, which is probably my favorite part of the entire video, is everybody just being like, oh, God, like, what's going on? Somebody else said, the guy at the end, bye, LOL. So anyway, that is what we originally saw. We had watched that, and then we all just sat around trying to figure out what the hell happened. Like, what caused that? What did she see? What did she do? And now that some time has passed, we have a little more context, including these other angles of what led up to that viral clip. Watch this.
Stop the plane. Stop the plane.
So that's her in her seat.
Stop the plane. No. So what's going on? Stop it. Stop it. I'm not sitting on the fire again. I'm getting the off because no, I'm getting the off. Because there is a stupid on here. No.
So she kept referencing this guy, and allegedly he was in a green hoodie and he was in the seat next to her. And then he allegedly came forward on TikTok like a month and a half later and was like, yeah, that's me, and acknowledged that he was a Satanist and had a bunch of like Satanist and Illuminati style tattoos. But I don't know if that video really went anywhere. Like, he popped up and then he went away and everybody just carried on and continued talking about her and didn't really acknowledge him. And I think he's an integral part of the story, so I'm not sure why we moved on from him so quickly if we don't think that it's him that she was seeing, if she really was seeing like a lizard person or something else. But anyway, people moved on and kept making up stories and speculating. But then, a little bit later, this video came out of what happened right when she got off the plane, because obviously the police were called, so then we started to get the body cam footage. Watch this.
Escorting me out and I'll never fly with them again. Ma'am, since you no longer have a valid ticket or business on this side of the airport, we gotta escort you out to the public side, okay?
Where's your suitcase?
You ready?
It's on that flight.
If you don't leave, you'll be under arrest or criminal trespass. This is your warning right here.
Let that flight leave. Do not let that flight leave.
So not only did she not want to fly, but she did not want anybody else on the flight to fly.
That flight's not going to make it to Orlando.
Let's go.
It's not going to. I'm not making it to Orlando.
So after she made her way through the airport, they did actually make everybody on the flight get off. They went through the plane. I think they checked people, then everybody got back on, and they did end up flying to Orlando. But they took it relatively seriously because she seemed very adamant that something with the plane was wrong, or that somebody who was on the plane was not right. Somebody commented and said they were definitely trying to silence her. Another person said the situation wouldn't have gotten this far if these officials conducted an interview, her or anybody else on that plane, yet nobody did anything, which is incredibly odd. Another person said, don't you think the police and the airline were obligated to ask her why she felt that way? She says the flight is not going to make it. My next question is why. I didn't even think about that. But nobody did ask. It was just the flight attendants being like, ma'am, please sit down. Like, if your job is to keep passengers safe or keep people in an airport safe, if somebody is saying this plane is not going to make it, maybe we should ask why. Like, we have TSA. Our rights get stripped away from us as we get onto an airplane to protect everybody who's on the planes. That's okay, but if a woman says a flight is not going to make it, let's not ask those questions. No, like, it is very fishy, guys. It is very weird. And of course, this video did not help the confusion, conspiracy theories going around. Like, it was almost easier to figure out when we all had the initial clip, but this just makes it much stranger. So then after this police body cam footage came out, she went back home, and at some point later, she came back to the airport for her new flight, since she had gotten off the other, and she did not travel to Orlando. And of course, TMZ was there, ready to greet her and ask her some questions where her answers were even more vague and more weird than before. Watch this.
A lot of people are curious what exactly you saw, because you know, you alluded to what you saw, but like, we just want to know, like, you know, what did you see?
I mean, thanks for asking that, but I have been told I cannot comment on it right now.
So who has told her she can't comment? Is it her legal team? Is it somebody else? Is it the World Economic Forum? We have literally no idea.
The reason that you wanted to get off so bad?
Again, can't speak on that right now, but I was distressed and I was getting off the plane no matter what. I just probably didn't need to make the scene that I made.
Right.
But I was getting off that plane.
So she still stands by the fact that she wanted to get off the plane, that she should have gotten off the plane. The only thing that she's correcting is maybe I should have made a scene. But that woman saw something that made her want to get off the plane, and months later, she is still standing by that decision. Like, her answers are just as vague as all the meat companies trying to convince you that their products are actually grown and processed in America. And newsflash, most of them are not, unlike Good Ranchers. Now, there is a lot at stake this November, so don't be a chicken and shop at the grocery store like usual. Instead, head over to Good Ranchers. Their Black Friday Your Way sale is live right now, and it is something that you do not want to miss. They have great meat puns, but they also have even better American-raised meat. This November, you get to pick your favorite meat to get free for an entire year. You can pick a year of free steak, salmon, chicken, or bacon when you subscribe to any box right now. Better yet, when you subscribe to any box on GoodRanchers.com, you not only get a free gift of meat up to $480, but you also get $15 off that original subscription with code Cooper. And this is amazing because the only big deal your grocery store has is on expiring foods. So ditch the meat aisle and subscribe at GoodRanchers.com today. You can claim your year of free meat, $15 off, and free shipping with my code Cooper at GoodRanchers.com. Good Ranchers is seriously the #1 place to get all-American beef, pork, chicken, and seafood. That is promo code Cooper at GoodRanchers.com. Again, that is promo code Cooper at GoodRanchers.com. And they are not vague, they are transparent, unlike Tiffany, will not give us any answers. One person commented under that video and said, she doesn't look like the same girl from the plane, which is a common thing that people are saying now. Another person said, she's not the same person, and if she is, why won't she say what she saw? Why do we get an apology? Why don't we know what she saw? Who's keeping her silent? Again, she is adamant that she cannot talk about it. She will not talk about it. She was getting off the plane one way or another. Again, why? We have no idea, no information whatsoever. It's incredibly spooky. And then after this video, after the TMZ interview, she went silent for months. We heard nothing about her. I personally forgot about her.
Several months later.
Then randomly, she popped back up on X with new social media pages, a rebrand, and she posted this apology after a long period of silence.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tiffany Gomez, probably better known as the Crazy Plane Lady, which is completely warranted. As you know, I have been unwilling to speak on the viral video.
Unwilling, or not allowed. The story's changing, Tiffany.
First and foremost, I want to take full accountability for my actions. They were completely unacceptable. Distressed or not, I should have been in control of my emotions, and that was not the case. My use of profanity was completely unnecessary.
Is it just me, or is she reading this? Like, did she get the teleprompter app on her phone? She has a written apology. It's like perfectly written, perfectly articulated. I have watched a lot of celebrity apology videos, a lot of normal people apology videos on TikTok. They're usually a little bit more frantic, but if like a PR person has put something in front of them, it's very specified and unhappy that they are having to do this, and that's the same vibe that I get from this. I don't know who's giving her silent or making her do this, but somebody's advising her, in my opinion.
And I want to apologize to everyone on that plane, especially those that had children aboard.
She also doesn't look very sorry, but it might just be that she has Botox, so I think she does, so we should just get her face. That's kind of mean, but both options are warranted.
Well, it has been really comical for everyone, and I have highly enjoyed so many of the memes. On the flip side, it is very invasive, unkind, and I don't know what I would do without the love and support of my friends and family. They are loyal to a fault, and I don't know what I did to deserve them. I hope that you guys can accept my apology, and I can begin to move on with my life.
At the end of the video, Tiffany Gomez joined me on my journey of promoting positive mental health and standing up against cyberbullying. So now she's starting a new campaign. And then at the end of her caption, she says, this experience has been life-altering, and I hope to do some good for it and promote positive mental health. Stay tuned. Hashtag Tiffany Gomez. Hashtag stay tuned. The whole thing, it just gets weirder by the day.
I'm freaking out, man.
The amount of people supporting her in the comments is absolutely wild. I'm not shocked by that whatsoever because everybody wants to know what she's seen. In my opinion, I also don't think this huge public apology was super warranted. Like, at this point, I think a lot of people had moved on. I personally had forgotten, and then I saw that this was popping up all over my Twitter feed, and I was like, oh my gosh, it has 30 million impressions now. Everybody's talking about it. It's obviously giving her more attention, but I was not expecting it in the slightest. But so many people were supporting her in the comments. It was wild. Cat Turd said, nobody's mad at you. We all thought the plane video was epic and iconic. You have nothing to apologize for. Somebody else said apologies are not necessary and you did not do anything wrong. Like, literally everybody has her back. Somebody else said, to be fair, if I was stressed and somebody who was covered in tattoos and had weird looking eyes and said I'm Lucifer before taking off, which is allegedly what the guy in the green hoodie that I talked about did, I'd probably react similarly. We love you, plane lady. Sorry for the vitriol that has been tossed your way. Stay classy. Now, after that apology went up, there was silence. She posted a couple of photos, like, on her kitchen floor with her feet very in view, so most of the comments were like, no, Tiffany, I know you're new to this, and, like, being public, don't show off the feet. Like, that was most of the comments. And then after that, she was silent for a bit, and then posted this very odd cryptic post, and she said, I'm the stranger you lock eyes with at the airport and imagine a life together.
What the fuck?
Like, she's totally banking on this. I don't know what that means other than she thinks all of these guys who were super into her after this plane video that she's gonna, bag one of them. I have no idea. Somebody said, are you even real or are you an AI person? Somebody said, AI working overtime with this one. Somebody else commented and said, remember kids, mental breakdowns are only profitable if you're pretty. And I mean, he's not wrong. Like, she's definitely trying to spin this because around the same time she unveiled her new website to promote all of this. She did a photo shoot for it. Tiffany Gomez, Texas girl, real estate marketing, a viral personality. She should have just put Plane Girl and owned it. Now she allegedly owns a marketing company. That was something that people found out like initially right after the plane video. So she's definitely trying to find a way to spin this for herself. More power to her. I don't know what's gonna come of it, but good job, sis. Shortly after this, she also went on the Barstool Sports podcast, Pardon My Take, which is a fantastic podcast. It was so random that she popped up on there. And they obviously asked her what she saw on the plane, and she answered, and guys, it was even more vague. We are now on like our 4th interview, and it just keeps getting more confusing. Listen to this.
Can I ask again what you saw?
You know, the reason why I probably haven't come out yet, because it's like so cringe, I did not see anything.
What?
I mean, I think y'all knew that.
Okay.
What the fuck?
No idea. Yeah.
They're like, no, we didn't. We think you saw something, and you're just not saying. We're like, we're not buying it.
No, I did not. The media.
You said this mother.
I said that mother.
Is not real.
These. Or
Okay.
really, like.
Apologies.
Yeah. So, I got in a bit of an altercation.
It cracks me up that she seems irritated that they're asking her what she saw. Like, Tiffany, love you, girl. Again, more power to you. Do whatever you want. But the only reason you're on Pardon My Take, the only reason that you were invited on Jesse Waters or the TMZ was following you in the airport is because you said you saw something. And you had a mental breakdown on the plane and you left and you were so adamant that you saw something. And then now somebody else is coming forward and said, yo, yeah, it was the Satanist. Obviously, there was something going on there. We all want to know. That's the only reason they didn't bring you on this podcast to talk about sports. They don't want to know what you think about the Dallas Cowboys. They want to know what you saw on the plane. So do not be like, oh, I can't be you put yourself on a website. You want to be a viral personality? Talk about what made you viral. Oh my God. Okay. I just want to know.
Thank God people like don't think it's me though.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that. I'm
Wait.
cool with that. I'm happy if they don't think it's me.
So what you're saying is that clip that we all saw, that motherfucker's not real, is not like you thinking that someone is an alien. It was just the tail end of an argument.
It was an expression of speech.
And what does that mean, Tiffany? It was an expression of speech.
So it was just like you had an argument with some guy on the plane, and then as you're leaving, you're like, that motherfucker's not real.
Yeah.
That's
was it like
crazy.
an arm wrestle? Like you got to fight
Yeah,
over
what was
the
the
arm
fight
wrestle?
over?
Wow. Why isn't she saying anything? Is it because he actually did say I'm Lucifer and that he was a Satanist and now you are being like held hostage by the Satanist of America? Like, it's a viable answer. And I mean, don't go on these podcasts if you are not willing to answer the questions, because that is literally the only thing people are going to ask you. You're more than welcome to go on my show. I'll ask you the same damn thing. I will ask you the same damn thing. I guarantee everybody will.
There was just a really bad energy, and I don't want to get into like all the details of that.
No, that's what we want. What was the energy? What, Tiffany? Tiffany, that's literally what we want. We want to know what the bad energy was. Was it like Epstein energy? Was it Satanist energy? Was it in the Illuminati energy, Scientology? We just want to know.
I feel like you're vindicated now, because it really was, everyone thought like, oh, she saw something. She saw something. She's crazy.
He does not believe that in the slightest. He's just like, this is going nowhere. I'll just hype you up, girl. Vindicated. She's not vindicated. That entire thing just irritated me. Just answer the question. Somebody said, okay. Either she's been paid off or threatened. Somebody said she used a lot of words but actually didn't say anything at all. What? Yes. So obviously now everybody is far more confused than we were when we originally saw the video. I personally am a little more amped up because the longer this drags on, when she goes on public platforms and then just refuses to talk about it, but alludes to bad energy and alludes to something, you know, happening, like I didn't see anything, but there was something going on, but I can't tell you what was going on. I just switched seats. I cannot stop wanting to know now. People are continuing to make up conspiracy theories. The leading theory, kind of like she mentioned in that video with them, is that the girl on the plane saw something that she was not supposed to, and now every other video and interview she's done is somebody different. Maybe it's AI generated, it's another woman. The photos are AI generated. Somebody tweeted this and said diverse, and then posted all different photos of her saying it's not the same woman. In my opinion, I think that's the least interesting conspiracy theory, because the other option is that we just all look different from different angles and in different lighting, and we definitely look different when we have had our makeup done and we are airbrushed to high heaven like she is in a couple of those photos, and possibly that she was on some cocktail of, you know, Xanax and pre-flight wine at the airport and did see something but then just turned it into something crazy. Like, she could just say this guy was really weird and was covered in Satan's tattoos and said he was Lucifer and I was drunk and I freaked out and I left the plane. We could all move on with our lives. It would be really interesting. I would want to know who that guy is, what's going on, and who's like threatening you, but who knows? The option that she really is a different person in every interview is obviously far more intriguing. And to be fair, as many people have said before, if I was drunk and was out of my mind and was told to sit next to some hooded man that was covered in like Illuminati and Satan tattoos, I and probably all of us might have had a similar reaction. I just want that to be confirmed so I can rest easy. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the comment section and that you maybe even learned something new. If you have not already, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and of course, ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section episode.
I think this is an embarrassment. I think you should shutter the doors and close it off. If you voted for a guy that did that, it's over. You're not a serious country.
Aw,
you
you
can't ever be considered a serious
cocksucker.
country. We voted for Trump, and that was really embarrassing, right? Like, that was really, really embarrassing. But at least Trump didn't do this, dude. It's ridiculous. But let's take a look. Like, I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if it will change the dynamic of Argentina, like, dramatically.
The explosion is coming, they sang in triumph. And here it is. Javier Milei.
Are they playing ska? Is this the song that the guy was saying in the chat? Dude, there are so many fucking memes, okay? There are so many memes already. This guy's crazy.
Libertarian, iconoclast, Trump wannabe, president-elect of Argentina, voted in by a landslide.
Yeah, the people who view Milei as some outside crazy force and not just a continuation of neoliberal austerity capitalism has no political analytical skills. Yeah, it's kind of odd because, like, he obviously has, like, ridiculous things that he says that no one will allow him to do because, like, you still need stability, right? It's the Trump equation. Like, Donald Trump comes in and he's this force, right? He's this, like, unshakable force, and people go, oh my God, this spells trouble for America. And it's like, what does he do? What are his most effective policy?
Wait, ooh. Yeah, that's what you get for fucking...
One, he's just simply a continuation of the Republican Party, okay? That's all it is. And maybe he doesn't have the same level of, like, restriction or restraint that, like, a regular institutional Republican would have, which does genuinely have harmful effects on the ground, right? for people's lives and shit. But ultimately, he's crazy right-wing on immigration. Donald Trump was, right? And he did like baby separation, which went a little too far so that like America had to triangulate. But beyond that, like Abraham Accords, Israel, Palestine, fucking out of control, nutty. Rips up the fucking Iran denuclearization agreement, out of control, nutty. Meanwhile, you know, what has the Biden administration done? Hasn't fixed any of that shit. Literally has continued along in that same trajectory, right? My point is, ultimately, Donald Trump was most successful when it came down to cutting taxes for the wealthy and gutting federal agencies, right? And that is all stuff that you would see under any effective Republican leadership, and maybe even some Democratic leaderships as well. Not to the same degree, of course. Federal agencies especially, Brandon has been very strong on. So this is, in a way, very similar to that. No. I'm not talking about immigration in Argentina. I was just making a Trump comparison. And the reason why I brought up immigration when I was talking about Trump is because, like, Trump's policies or what he says might be ridiculous, but when put into practice, the policies themselves are not all that ridiculous. They're just a continuation of, like, there's a continuation of like the regular Republican policies, and that's it, right? Polarizing the economy to fight inflation is batshit crazy. Just like fucking cutting taxes to combat inflation is insane. Oh, he said I'm trolling.
La situación de Argentina es crítica. Los cambios que nuestro país necesita son drásticos. No hay lugar para gradualismo. No hay lugar para la tibieza. No hay lugar para medias tintas.
With inflation at 140%, growing poverty, and the left-wing Peronists in power for 16 of the last 20 years, people voted for one thing, un cambio, a change.
Creo que esta vez la Argentina necesitaba un cambio.
Javier Milei porque
I like that you ask these motherfuckers, like, what do you think about the IMF? They will all say, fuck the IMF, horrible institution, it should be blown up, okay? But then they go and they fucking vote over and over again for motherfuckers that have to, either by force or ideologically aligned, because they're ideologically aligned, with dudes who are going to follow the austerity measures and implement them. And this time they just directly voted for basically the greatest IMF leader that you could have put forward.
Realmente necesito un cambio, quiero un cambio para mi país.
I should have waited.
The current finance minister, Sergio Massa, conceded and wished Milei luck. He'll need it.
Why can't we get a Milei but socialist? God, I'd love for the president of the left to say, hey, no half measures, let's do this shit. I mean, when that happens in Latin America, they get executed. When you have a no half measures guy, they either get killed or they're completely blocked off from trade for the rest of the world. Or if you have a yes half measures, let's do social democracy, please guy, Lula, he literally gets prosecuted falsely in one of the most corrupt countries, and like he gets thrown in prison for being like 3% corrupt, okay, in comparison to the 75% corruption that's happening. So there's no circumstance in which like someone can go, yeah, I'm going to legitimately save the country and implement nationalization and do good things for my people. It's pretty funny because, like, I mean, Argentina is not like this, but I saw a tweet. I remember it's like every Latin American election is like the coalition of socialist, indigenous, workers' parties, peoples, 51% of the vote, or 50.9% of the vote, and then the other is like the other is like anti-Semitic Nazis for tort reform, and then that gets like 49.9% of the vote. This guy, on the other hand, is, I mean, Argentina's a little bit different than that, but you know, this guy is awesome. He's a fucking huge meme, and he is dog shit, and I don't really know what can happen to Argentina in general.
Milei brandished a chainsaw while campaigning to show how he plans to slash government spending and the state itself. One of his supporters even dressed as a chainsaw to reinforce the point.
A lot of people are covering this without realizing this is Chainsaw Man. Like, they don't know. They don't have enough knowledge.
He plans to abandon the peso for the dollar, but the central bank has no dollars, and the country is deeply in debt. 4 years ago, before entering politics, he styled himself General ANCAP, General Anarcho-Capitalist.
I think this is an embarrassment. I think you should shutter the doors and close it off. If you voted for a guy that did that, it's over. You're not a serious country. You can't ever be considered a serious country. It's like, we voted for Trump, and that was really embarrassing, right? Like, that was really, really embarrassing. But at least Trump didn't do motherfucking this, dude. It's ridiculous. If you say shit like, we had no other choice, you're a deeply unserious person with zero analytical skills. I mean, dude, you could have literally voted for the right neoliberal party, and even then, it would have been like, I guess, lesser evil voting. But like, it wouldn't be as embarrassing, you know what I mean? And it wouldn't be as bad, literally. This guy's, everything he said is bad. I have yet to see, I mean, I read up a lot about him. I did not see a single thing where I was like, well, this is manageable. This makes him seem human.
Esa situación es tan horrible.
During the campaign, he backed away from his proposal for an open market in human organs, but broke down in tears when accused of being a Nazi. He says he gets advice from his English Mastiffs, named after neoliberal economists and cloned from his dearly departed dog Conan. Some say he's barking mad.
But he still talks to Conan, bro. He still gets advice from Conan. Dude, that's so sick. Yo, I'm sorry. This is like, we have not fully understood what the Cold War era forced neoliberalism did to Latin America. Because like, the impacts of that are still happening. You cannot fuck up an entire region like for years and years, for decades on end, and expect it not to have like every now and then have this kind of outcome. Did we break them too? I mean, we did, but so did England. England more so, and then we did as well. We broke everybody. America has its hands in everything. Bro, you're going, did we brick this guy? Look at him. What do you think? He is the most Reddit president you could have. This is a more Reddit president than fucking, what's his name, Bukele.
I might lose right here.
He is more Reddit than the guy in El Salvador. Like, think about that. I thought, there's no way someone could be more Reddit than a guy who literally said, I'm going to turn my country into an NFT, okay? Wow, such insightful commentary. America bad. Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, because America meddling in the Latin America ended with the Cold War, right? No, of course.
Damn it.
Of course it didn't, but I'm just saying that, like, the impact, the most important impact was during the Cold War, I think.
Despite his decisive electoral win, Milei may not be able to push through his radical agenda because he has little support in Congress or the Senate, and no regional governors are from his fledgling political party.
He has been clever enough to understand the social context, has been clever enough to run a campaign without many resources. He has been elected president. Now, can he be able to do it, to move forward without experience?
I think everyone is going to say this is a consequence of Peronism and how, like, left-wing Peronism is the reason as to why Argentina said enough is enough. And it's like, that completely betrays any kind of serious analysis over the situation. And that is, like, what most people are going to talk about. Which is what I assume people will be complaining
without
about.
The Congress, without the governors, and there is a lot of doubt about that.
All night, Milei's supporters gathered round Buenos Aires' iconic obelisk. But in the cold light of day, they may find that what lies ahead is not deliverance, but months of economic and political instability, as their new president struggles to turn idiosyncratic campaign slogans into a workable program for government.
Wait, Tucker Carlson interviewed him? No shot, dude. No. But why wouldn't he? Of course he did. Oh, God, I hate
Dr. Christopher Sabatini is the Senior Research Fellow for Latin America at the Foreign Affairs think tank Chatham House. He joins us now from West London. Can he do what he says he wants to do? Can he really take a chainsaw to the health service and government departments and scrap the peso and bring in the dollar when nobody has any dollars?
Christian, it's a good question. There are a number of obstacles. The first one is that he only has a handful of deputies in the Chamber of Deputies and about 7 senators in the 72-seat Senate. So his ability to implement such radical changes is going to confront his limited political ballast, if you will.
You're a weirdo.
There's no governors. First, there's that. The second is his economic ideas are truly untested. As your report mentioned.
Are they though? I feel like that's copium in some ways, because, like, his economic ideals are, I guess, like, the most neoliberal. Like, it's neoliberalism on steroids, but, like, I wouldn't say they're fucking, I wouldn't say that they're untested. We've been implementing it slowly but surely everywhere. I mean, Chile is a great example of a place that forcibly implemented them. So this is in many ways, I feel like this is the classic, like, real capitalism hasn't been tried copium. I know that you were waiting for this motherfucker to win to cover him, right? Well, I wasn't waiting for him to win. I did not want him to win. I don't know enough about, I'm not, like, it's not my strong suit beyond, like, memes, Argentina politics, right? So I have now been forced to look at all of the memes and also do some reading on his background. I covered him a little bit, but he said today he's going to privatize state media and state energy petroleum, which was already done in the 90s. It's not doesn't give a shit about Latin America law. That's not true. That's actually completely untrue. Hi, chat. Argentinian here is true. I'm truly saddened about the result of the elections. Not only Milei is a far-right libertarian, he's also a climate change denier. Vindicates the atrocities committed by the last dictatorship and wants to privatize our national oil company. It's really sad what is happening to our country. Love for you in chat. His competitor was a Hillary Clinton. Basically, he was going to win law. Anyway, let's continue.
Earlier, there are no dollars in the central bank, or very few. So the idea of completely dollarizing the economy is really a non-starter, certainly right now.
Yeah, that part is untested, I guess.
But second, he's going to confront a political economic system in Argentina that has basically grown up around a state-centric, clientelistic economy. More than 80% of Argentines depend on some form of public good, whether it's subsidies.
It's like, for those of you here, I'll give you the Oxford reference for Peronism, okay? So this is the ill-defined Argentinian political ideology, the social base of the first regime coming in 1946 to 1955. An ill-defined Argentinian political ideology known as Justicia socialismo, which espouses Juan Perón's policies of social justice, economic nationalism, and international non-alignment. It's not. I wouldn't say it's like social democracy. I feel like it is a little bit different than social democracy because there's right-wing components mixed into it. It remained strong within Argentina after Perón's departure in 1955, largely among the trade unions, which cherished the memory of the early years of his presidency. In May 1989, the Peronist Menem was elected president. As far as I understand it, yeah, good luck defining Peronism. It is not easy, in my opinion, to define it. It is a populist movement. It's one that, in a country with like insane levels of wealth inequality, due to land barons consolidating and amassing all of their wealth over a post-colonial century, almost, like over multiple decades of intergenerational wealth accumulation. This is one of the first instances of like a ostensibly leftist worker movement. So it, of course, was incredibly fucking popular. But it is a reactionary social democracy is a decent way of looking at it. It's like it is pre-full tilt fascism Mussolini almost, kind of. I'm doing a really bad job of
What the fuck do you mean? What?
I feel like, but because there's a lot of great social amenities that come along with it. It's like there's a lot of amenities that come along with it. It's very popular. Like when you offer social amenities to people, especially after never having their needs met, all of a sudden it doesn't fucking really matter what your ideological grounding is, what your principles are. It just, people will ride for it, and it has. It is stuck for many, many years. But yeah, in May 1989, the Peronist Menem was elected president, but his economic program, including the privatization of state-owned industries of foreign buyers, betrayed many Peronist principles. Indeed, Menem managed to redefine Peronism as a movement of compromise. It shed its traditional image of a party composed of rowdy trade unionists and led by shady mafia-type characters, and moved to attract the political center crown. Under Eduardo Duhalde, the Peronists lost the 1999 presidential elections, but he became the president amidst a deep economic and political crisis in December 2001. Duhalde was succeeded by Nestor Kirchner in 2003, under whom the Peronist Justice Party continued to defend its overwhelming majority parliament. Kirchner does not stand in 2007, supporting the successful candidacy of his wife, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. We can also look through the Wikipedia of it if you want. But let's get back to what's going on right now in Argentina.
Whether it's handouts, whether it's even employment in the government. So what we're looking at is a series of very radical, untested economic ideas confronting a system that is not really cut out for this sort of wrenching change.
But if he has the people out on the streets cheering him now, what happens when he can't do what they voted for?
Well, I think we'll see. First of all, we'll see a number of things. Many of the people that have voted for him are truly disenfranchised. They're disgusted. They're angry with the political class. So, and many of them are not necessarily direct beneficiaries of those public subsidies that we talked about. They work in the informal sector. They are largely youth. You mentioned in the ingoing segment here that he's largely built his campaign with very little money on TikTok, and that is tied into the youth. And if you're under 30...
Okay, but as far as I understand, that's not true either. Milei's popularity came from right-wing fucking media pumping his ass on television non-fucking stop for years and years, and like creating this behemoth of a meme before TikTok pushed him. Like,
fuck.
The youth. And if you're under 30...
Okay, but as far as I understand, that's not true either. Milei's popularity came from right-wing fucking media pumping his ass on television non-fucking stop for years and years, and like creating this behemoth of a meme before TikTok pushed him. Like, also, it would destroy the fucking the argument that like TikTok is backed by CCP, because his major point of contention... is that we need to break away from China. I'm going to go to Israel. I'm moving the fucking Argentinian embassy to Jerusalem, which is like dick riding to an unimaginable degree. It's like, dog, if you have like 142% inflation, why the fuck do you care about riding Israel's cock? What are you doing? Okay, he is literally Reddit personified. Hates China, wants to literally change the country's currency to the American dollar, wants to blow up the central bank. It's not dick riding, it's literally a fucking cargo cult. Yeah, RG here, for the last 2 years, right-wing media has been having him on weekly in the news. Literally one of their responsibilities, this guy made it this far. No, it's literally a Trumpian situation. Yeah, dollarization is not untested. Argentina had a 1-1 forced dollar parity during neoliberal governments. That's also true. And then that's also, as far as I understand, played into the current economic collapse that they're withstanding. I feel like in order to talk about Argentina, you have to talk about the IMF, which is, you know, something that I've talked about so many fucking times, except it's another one of those like classic Hasanabi America bad moments, but it is a country that is absolutely eviscerated by the same economic shock doctrine that has ruined so many nations. 1-to-1 is not the same as dollarization. All right.
You're looking at very dismal job prospects. So for many of his followers, and he's clearly created a very cult-like following, they are not beneficiaries of that. But what will happen is, in any attempt to reform even close to what he's proposing, what he's going to have to confront are very powerful economic vested interests. And that is going to be difficult. I think it will be very difficult economically as well as politically, especially given a Peronist party that lost, graciously, luckily, but clearly maintains the factores de poder, these particular sort of popular elements of mobilization and organization.
Do you think democracy can survive in Argentina, or could we see a return to the past?
There are several challenges to democracy. It's not going to be a coup d'etat like we saw, say, in 1976. The time has passed when we see generals goose-stepping their way towards the presidential palace and removing an elected president. Having said that, what we could see is an erosion of the fundamental checks and balances of democracy. The only way he can fundamentally organize and implement his plan is really by steamrolling the Congress, given his low levels of representatives. But also the levels of polarization, the discourse, and again, your very good introductory segment talked about how vulgar and coarse his public debate is. That is going to have a very dire effect on civic culture within Argentina, as well as his own sort of capacity and tolerance for pluralism that he's clearly, as the chainsaw symbol represents, doesn't have a lot of capacity for.
Might he have it?
Dude, I'm from Argentina. The campaign of this guy was operated from think tanks in the USA, like Liberty Foundation, Heritage Foundation. Yeah, it's not a fucking accident that Ben Shapiro's been dick riding him so fucking hard. Everyone will think, oh, Ben Shapiro loves him because like Milei loves Israel or whatever, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is because like Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro both dick ride this man because he basically is like we no longer need the CIA to go in and specifically prop up people like this in countries like Argentina. You can just have a guy do it on his own, okay? The same forces are still at play, but that's why I was talking about how the Cold War and its devastating impact on Latin American countries is still very much alive. It's kind of like, you know how I talked about J. Edgar Hoover could have never imagined a world in which like, you know, black Zoomers on TikTok would be shitting on Martin Luther King by using literally the FBI smears against them, saying that he like MLK actually hated black women or whatever the fuck, like, because the internet does it on its own now, or how the DSA or any kind of like socialist movement basically inevitably engages in its own like co-Intel-Pro on its own. You know what I mean? Like there's always sectarian infighting that's happening nonstop in leftist movements without like any kind of intervention from the federal agencies. It's basically kind of like that. We have broken every country. We've broken ourselves as well. So now you don't even need like serious direct intervention, and you could just have a guy like that. Neoliberalism will cause so much chaos in your country. Okay? Neoliberalism will cause so much chaos in your country that you don't even need like a American-backed military coup and a military dictatorship to like forcibly come into power and rewrite the Constitution with a bunch of like American dickhead, college campus neoliberals. You don't have to do any of that. You got motherfuckers doing it for you on their own volition.
Any international allies? I mean, he's a fan of Donald Trump. Is there anybody out there who might come and bail him out?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Donald Trump is a supporter. Donald Trump really doesn't have a lot of affinity for those who have ties to democratic norms and those niceties. He tweeted his congratulations to Milei. Tucker Carlson, the Fox News host, who was a big Donald Trump supporter, was actually in Argentina. He also counts to the support of Jair Bolsonaro, the now disgraced but former president of Brazil, who also they held a FaceTime conversation shortly after Milei was elected. He will have allies. The question is sort of, what can his allies bring?
Okay, both of his allies are disgraced former presidents. What does that say? Not a good, doesn't instill a lot of confidence. But the reality is this, okay? as the far-right Israeli government has shown, as the Bolsonaro government, but also as the State Department's immediate message after Milei winning the election. The American government doesn't give a shit. It don't matter to us if you're far-right. We love that shit, dog. The fuck do you mean? Yeah, look, there you go. We look forward to working with him and his administration. White House's John Kirby said of Milei, Argentina is a terrific partner in the region, and there's an awful lot of things we share in terms of values, value of democracy, human rights, and just hemispheric security. That's what our take is. We don't give a fuck. Oh, we lost an Argentinian chatter wrote a fucking essay. Scooby Deals. Argentinian chatter here. I was just from your stream starting to appreciate the stuff we have here. Things like free healthcare, really good, and completely free universities, good public transport. Even with all our flaws, it felt like we were going in the right direction and we had a lot of potential. But turns out now it's Jover for us. I'm so fucking sad that this is such a setback. Not to mention all the dictatorship denial. Like a German president denying the Holocaust. Yeah. There's also the component. There's also another problem here. There's also his fucking vice president, from what I understand, right? Like his VP is even fucking worse. This guy is crazy, man. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you other than holy shit. He is literally like, if you put one of my haters into a fucking lab and broke their brains further with like r/neoliberal and all the ANCAP memes, you literally spit out this guy.
He's denounced the president of Brazil, Lula, as being a savage communist, which I guess is worse than just being a normal communist. He's also said that he wants to cut ties with China, which will be impossible given that China represents a large share of the markets for Argentine agricultural goods. He will find allies, and he's promised also to move the Argentine embassy to Jerusalem, much as his...
He said that's his first trip. That's his first act. That's like Juan Guaido going... Remember when Juan Guaido was in fucking America? And he was like, well, constitutionally speaking, I know that like I have this like window of power, right, in the Venezuelan constitution that would give me the opportunity to like change Venezuelan politics. And what will I do in that moment? Well, I'll just go to America and tell the American Congress that like I love Israel, and also I'm going to privatize our oil extraction industries. It's like, wow, thanks, man. That's super sick. I'm glad. That's really what people of Venezuela were like gonna vote for you on. That is what they want. That's what they wanted. Thank you. Argentina here, Villarreal, his VP, complained about posters remembering the desaparecidos of the last dictatorship in the school she voted at.
His sort of patron and Donald Trump has done, but it's going to be difficult, especially in a neighborhood, South America, that's very much tilted to the left.
Dr. Sabatini, thank you very much indeed. Thanks.
Other Argentinian chatter here. The Argentine left forcibly pushed the public to the right because it's ridden with corruption. I value Argentina's dedication to public infrastructure, but Kirchnerismo has constantly fucked everyone in the ass and could not be allowed to win again. The desaparecidos are the missing people, right? People that were disappeared, killed with no body to mourn by the last dictatorship. Argentinian history is fucked, dude.
It's Black Friday. Now's your chance to build customer relationships and spark growth with all the automated tools you need at half the price. You'll fall in love with Brevo's approachable marketing suite. You'll have to...
This video was brought to you by Surfshark. Hello friends, my name is JJ, and this week I'm coming to you live from Toronto, the biggest and grandest city in all of Canada. As you may know, I am not from Toronto myself, but rather from Vancouver, a much smaller city way on the other side of the country. And yet, as my life progresses, I'm finding I have to come to Toronto more and more, just because so much important Canadian stuff is concentrated here, and so many important Canadian things happen here. And the more time I spend here, the more I come to realize the unique hold that this city has on this country's economy and politics, as well as the degree that it actively shapes so many of the cliches and stereotypes that define the modern Canadian sense of self-identity, as well as the image of Canada to the wider world. And so today, I thought I would take advantage of the fact that I am in Toronto to do a video on this very topic, how Toronto explains Canada. But before we get to any of that, let us just hear a quick word from today's video sponsor, Surfshark. Hello friends, so as I mentioned, I'm traveling around Canada at the moment, and you know what that means? Using the internet in a lot of weird, dodgy places. Coffee shops, hotel lobbies, basement suites of weird friends of friends. And as we all know, whenever you connect your computer or phone to a Wi-Fi network that you are not familiar with, you are taking a risk. Hacker-type people love to take advantage of morons like me who just blindly connect to any Wi-Fi network without the little lock beside it, and then use this unprotected connection to do all sorts of sinister things like spy on me, take my personal information, or even upload malware onto my machine without me even noticing. But surely there is no way to prevent such a horrible fate, you say? Well, that is where you are wrong. For you see, with the Surfshark VPN/internet security app, you can rest easy knowing your machines will always be secure, no matter whose crazy Wi-Fi you're using. The Surfshark app, which can be used on both desktop and mobile devices, keeps all of your data fully encrypted whenever you go online, and also uses security providers. So if you have been on the fence as to whether or not a VPN is right for you, do not wait any longer and give Surfshark a try today. Okay, so the first and probably most significant way that Toronto helps define Canada is through the city's enormous population. Toronto has a population of around 3 million people, which makes it Canada's largest city by a significant margin. An additional 3 million people live in the cities directly surrounding Toronto, which you could argue put them in the city's orbit to one degree or another. Since Canada's population is about 40 million, this means around 15% of all Canadians either live in Toronto or its surrounding suburbs. And this fact makes Canada significantly different from the US, where their largest metropolitan area, New York City, only comprises about 7% of the national population. So you can think of it that way. What would America be like if New York City was twice as big? That's Toronto. Toronto's position vis-a-vis the rest of Canada gets even more intense when you consider that it is located in the province of Ontario, which unto itself contains about 40% of the total Canadian population. And given the settlement patterns of the province, the majority of Ontarians live within just a few hours' drive of Toronto. So this means that Toronto is basically the city for 4 out of 10 Canadians. And this cannot help but give the city an outsized role in the Canadian imagination, just given how many Canadians will have spent at least some time in the place. All right, and now the second way that Toronto helps define Canada is just due to the fact that everything is in Toronto. Because Toronto is so big and so accessible to so much of the country, it has long been the place where so many of the big, important things in Canada are located. A partial list would include the headquarters of Canada's national newspapers and television stations, the headquarters of the CBC, the headquarters of Canada's 5 major banks, the headquarters of 5 of Canada's 10 largest corporations, the main Canadian stock exchange, Canada's 2 biggest universities, and Canada's only NBA team and only MLB team. A lot of Canada's most iconic brands likewise have names that refer to Toronto in some way, like the Toronto Dominion Bank, the Toronto Film Festival, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Even Canada's most beloved fast food chain, Tim Hortons, is named after a hockey player from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Due to its size, which is large even by US standards, Toronto also enjoys a status as a must-visit city for touring comedians and bands and musicals, or podcasters doing a live taping, or public intellectuals having a spirited debate about the future of the West. I would argue that this is in turn responsible for another significant part of the Canadian self-conception, namely the belief that Canada is one of the most important countries in the entire world. Canadians tend to think of Canada as one of the world's major countries that other nations should know about and respect. And I would say that part of this is just a sort of extrapolation of the fact that Toronto gets a lot of attention from internationally famous people. All right, now let us get into how Toronto helped establish the legend of Canadian progressivism. So people often talk about the liberalism of Canada as if it is something that is just inherent to the character of Canadians, like we are just fundamentally a progressive-minded people or whatever. But I would argue that a lot of the tropes of Canadian progressivism are actually rooted in particularly Toronto experiences that grew out of Toronto's unique history, and then, due to Toronto's unique influence over the rest of the country, have been subsequently generalized into universal Canadian values. So for much of Canadian history, Toronto was actually known for being one of the most conservative, modest, and quite puritanically Protestant places in North America. Beginning in the 19th century, Toronto was understood as Canada's main English city, in contrast to Montreal and Quebec City, which were more French. And accordingly, throughout the 1800s, Toronto established an identity that was very much bound up in the sort of upright, WASP, Victorian sensibilities that were very popular among English Canadian elites of the time. So it became a place where, you know, the sale of liquor was very tightly controlled and people dressed in a very austere way, and there were these extremely strict laws banning you from doing basically anything fun on a Sunday, like buying ice cream or playing tennis. Shopkeepers would hang big black curtains in their windows because it was seen as sinful to even look at products on the Lord's Day. There's a line I have always liked about how Toronto in those days was seen as the
one simple but brilliant trick to heat your home in 90 seconds and save thousands of dollars on your heating bill this winter.
Methodist Rome, in the sense of being defined by one of the most strident forms of a particular sort of Protestant ethos that was very colorless and judgmental. There was a dark side to this too, of course, with the stridently waspy character of Toronto, often making it a very uninviting place for minorities, especially Catholics and Jews, who were sometimes even on the receiving end of street violence. And all this lasted well into the 20th century, with catchphrases like Toronto the Good or New York run by the Swiss, reflecting this idea that Toronto was this very upright place that was very boring and polite, but orderly. The legacy of this reputation probably has something to do with the fact that Canadians continue to be considered these very polite people to this day, even though I would argue that there's less and less obvious evidence for that anymore. And that is in part because Toronto culture underwent an enormous revolution in the latter half of the 20th century in the aftermath of World War II. Canada's immigration laws were greatly liberalized in the 1960s, and this led to a tremendous inflow of immigrants into Toronto, including an unprecedentedly high number of people of color and non-Christians, and this has been the case ever since.
Very cool. I like that.
And Toronto is now by far the single most diverse city in all of Canada. The big social revolutions of the post-war era, like feminism, anti-racism, and gay rights, came to Toronto over in the same time, and were eagerly embraced by a population that was by then more than ready for them. And that is a critical point. Toronto had been such an uptight city for so long that when the winds of social change started to blow, they had a lot of lost time to make up for. And this led to the emergence of the progressive Toronto culture that we see today, which is proud, but maybe also a little insecure, in the sense of really feeling the need to prove that its reactionary, exclusionary past is now firmly behind it. I think that this is actually very often the case with places we think of as having a very progressive identity in the present. If you look at their history, it becomes easy to see their contemporary progressivism as very much a correction, or even overcorrection, to a past that was very much the other way. I think that the modern progressive identity of formerly conservative countries like Holland, Ireland, and Spain can be very much interpreted this way. And like Canada, I think that a lot of the progressivism to come out of those places was very much driven by their largest cities as well. But much like those countries, it is of course always worth noting that Canada did not universally transform into a bastion of progressivism just because Toronto did. Different parts of Canada have their own histories, with Western Canada in particular having a persistently conservative culture that is a byproduct of very different variables than that which made up the old conservative WASP culture of Toronto. But again, because Toronto is so big and important, it has become very easy to just generalize that Toronto-style progressivism must surely be, the default Canadian experience. And for people not that well versed in other parts of the country, it is easy to assume that Toronto is more representative than it may actually be. Okay, so the last highly significant Toronto thing is its geographic location. So Toronto is located here, and what do we immediately notice about this particular spot? Well, for one thing, it is very close to the United States, particularly Detroit, Philadelphia, and New York City. This has always made it easy to think of Toronto as existing within a certain club of large American cities located on this part of the continent. But since Toronto is also located in a different country, this has also invited a certain obsession with trying to define Toronto as being uniquely Canadian in some way. Travelers from the nearby big American cities are often very curious about this, and of course the Torontonians are themselves as well. In some ways it adds a kind of novel nationalistic dimension to the sort of traditional competitiveness that large American cities often have amongst themselves. Is LA better than Chicago and all of that? But in Toronto's case, the things that make it distinctive as a city are often taken to be reflective of Canada as a whole, both because because the city really leans into its Canadianness as something that makes it distinctive from its sister cities in the region, as well as the fact that Toronto is very often the only Canadian city that many Americans want or need to visit. Anti-Americanism is a huge part of Canada's national identity.
At Amazon Freight, we know the only thing better than having a friend with a truck is having a friend with a bigger.
Well, folks, good news from Argentina. Cool things happening there. Last night, Argentina shocked the world by electing a libertarian outsider named Javier Milei. Now, Milei is by far the most entertaining person in the world. I mean, like, on the planet. Javier Milei, this guy is wildly entertaining. Not only because he happens to be extremely conservative. When we say he's libertarian, not an abortion-ate. He is a full-scale proponent of the pro-life position, for example. He also does not happen to be particularly libertarian on certain forms of drug use, for example. So the description of him as a libertarian is not quite right. He's actually just a classical liberal with very conservative undertones in terms of religion and the importance of culture. He's great, in other words. So he won a huge victory yesterday in Argentina's presidential election, vowing to halt decades of economic decline in a country reeling from triple-digit inflation. Inflation right now is at 143%, which means that pretty much every day, everything gets more expensive, and that becomes a spiral. This is according to the AFP. With 55.7% of the vote, Milei thumped his rival, economy minister Sergio Massa, who won 44% of the vote and rapidly conceded defeat. Milei said in his victory speech, quote, "Today begins the reconstruction of Argentina. Today begins the end of Argentina's decline. The model of decadence has come to an end. There is no way back." Latin America's third biggest economy has suffered decades of crises under interventionist governments big on welfare that resort to printing money to finance spending, fueling inflation, while borrowing heavily only to default on their debt. Access to dollars is strictly controlled, leading to a thriving black market for greenbacks. Analysts warn the peso is ripe for a sharp devaluation. So despite all the inflation that's been taking place, actually the peso is still worth too much money because you can't trade it for US dollars. If you could trade it for US dollars, that means the peso is worth even less money. Milei's main platform has been a plan to ditch the peso for the US dollar and dynamite the central bank to do away with the cancer of inflation. Now, the problem is they don't have enough dollars to inject into the economy right away. So in order to really do that, they're going to have to reestablish creditworthiness. They're probably going to have to borrow a bunch of new money from the IMF, from the International Monetary Fund. However, Milei is just the guy to do this sort of stuff. He is incredibly bold. He also has suggested that he wants to cut ties on a governmental level with Brazil and China, saying he would not do business with communists. Now, it's going to be rough on an interpersonal and business level to do that sort of thing, and he has vowed that he's not going to do that. However, he is very much oriented toward the West, which means that the press hate him. That's the way that this works. If you're Jair Bolsonaro and you're very oriented toward the West, you like the United States, for example, you like Israel, you like Europe, that means that you're super bad. If you're Lula da Silva, who is an actual tyrant in Brazil and who loves Russia and who loves China and who loves Iran, then you're good, according to the international press. Again, the media, the international media, they are a smoking garbage heap, or run by activists from the left, which is why they hate Javier Milei. Think about the memories you're going to make during these holidays with those you love. Those moments around the dinner table, flag football out in the yard, or a 5K turkey trot early in the morning. Now, imagine being able to relive those holidays past with your own family. Recording a lifetime of memories used to be commitment. Camcorders cost thousands of dollars, tapes were expensive, cameras required film and development. Well, Legacy Box exists to preserve your family's recorded moments digitally, ensuring their safety forever. Out in your garage, got a bunch of old film reels. Do you have a film projector? They've been preserving that stuff? Not really. It's just sitting out there, and it's getting all moldy, and bugs are getting into it. Again, that's legacybox.com/Shapiro. Go check them out right now. It takes an amazing team of people to make this show successful, just like it takes an amazing team to make any business successful. We found a lot of these people on ZipRecruiter, and you can too. If you're hiring, you need to find the best people for your team. You need ZipRecruiter right now. You can try for free at ZipRecruiter. ILYWIRE. ZipRecruiter is indeed the smartest way to hire. I want to play some clips of Javier Milei because he is wildly entertaining. So I'm going to translate. Not that I speak Spanish, but the translations are available. Here is Javier Milei recently in an interview about the left. And man, he's the most memeable person alive.
Al zurdo de no le podés dar ni un milímetro.
You can't give leftards an inch. Can you define? Leftists is all collectivists. All kinds of collectivists. Well, why do you call them she asks? Because they are he says. If you think differently from them, she says. He says they will kill you. This is the point. You can't give leftists an inch. If you give them an inch, they will use it to destroy you. You can't negotiate with leftards. You don't negotiate with trash because they will end you. Okay, so that is who just got elected, the president of Argentina. Again, very much oriented toward the United States. Here he was talking about his agenda. This one is a little bit less colorful.
Nuestros ejes fundamentales son el libre. Comercio, la paz,
our fundamental axes are free trade, peace, freedom, and aligning ourselves with the West. Where the highest references in this, for us, are the United States and Israel. And as for China, ask Bloomberg News, is it one of the main trading partners? As well, they will be business partners of the private sector. We do not make a pact with communists. But then what would you do? In other words, would it not close Argentina's relations with China? He says, I would not promote relations with communists, nor with Cuba, nor with Venezuela, nor with North Korea, nor with Nicaragua, nor with China. And since for Venezuela, you're changing policies, obviously. Love it. Love it. And by the way, it's going to be a test of the Biden administration as to what they do with this guy. Because if they do not immediately bring Milei and Argentina into the fold, it is proof positive that this administration does not give a damn about pro-American.
Fuck. You idiot. What a dumb fuck.
Sentiments in Latin and South America. This guy is begging for Argentina to make great friends with the United States. If Biden somehow rejects that on behalf of the international leftism, it demonstrates full scale the impact of a foreign policy rooted in leftist nonsense. Meanwhile, here's Milei on dollarization. That, of course, would be the transfer away from the absolutely worthless Argentinian peso and toward the American dollar.
I think there's a previous discussion about dollarization. Actually, strictly speaking, it's to get rid of the central bank. The dollarization is an instrumental issue at the end of the day. There are four argumentative axes. One has to do with a moral issue, which is that stealing is wrong, and seigniorage is nothing more or less than a swindle by politicians against good people. Therefore, let's say if we consider that stealing is wrong, one of the greatest thieves in the history of mankind is the central bank. The second point has to do with a technical issue, because in the Argentine case, it is more evident when a product has no demand, its price is zero. So, if the local currency has no demand, then its price should be zero. The equilibrium real balances are zero. Whatever amount of money a central bank wishes to impose, the counterpart is that the price level is infinite. Demand and its price should be zero. Equilibrium, real balances are zero. Whatever amount of money a central bank wants to impose, the flip side is that the price level has infinity.
Unlock hundreds of deals on Safeway for you. Sign up today.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of creation.
Okay, this is correct. What he's saying is you can't just pump money into the economy and then pretend that the money is worth anything. It isn't. He's staunchly anti-abortion. He favors looser gun laws. He's criticized Pope Francis in the most colorful of terms. He makes me look like a piker in that particular department. He used to carry around a chainsaw in a symbol of his plan to the government, which is just the best. This is just the best. And again, here's maybe my favorite Milei video. There are a bunch of them that are just spectacular. And if you've never seen a picture of Milei, he looks like dorky Wolverine. It's amazing. He's got like the big hair and he's got mutton chops, and he's famously suggested that he's not cut his hair since high school. He's a very kind of Trumpy character in his own personal life. He used to talk pretty openly about being like a tantric sex guru and all the rest of this kind of stuff. It's hysterical stuff. This is the video that probably of him has gone the most viral. And for those who can't see, he's standing next to a whiteboard with taped up on the whiteboard are the names of the various ministries in Argentina. And he's just going through and ripping them down and saying that he's going to throw them out. Here we go. His Ministry of Sports and Tourism, out. Ministry of Culture, fuera. Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development, out. Ministry of Women. Genders and Diversity, out. Ministry of Public Works. He says out. Even if he was stuck to the board. Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Ministry of Labor, Employment, and Social Security. Ministry of Education, Indoctrination, out. Ministry of Transport, out. Ministry of Health, out. Ministry of Social Development, out. The theory of politics is over. Long live damn liberty. He's great. Are you tired of the lies and the twist of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda. We can fight over some things. 1 second.
Okay, that's fine. It's not just Hamas that is violent. It's not just Hamas that is hateful, that says we want to eradicate the Jews. There are other groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PFLP, even the PLO.
The madman's done it. In a viral video, Javier Milei, who was running for president in Argentina, goes off on leftists. And he uses a very great Spanish word. Now, I don't know YouTube's rules for certain words in other languages. I know English. And I know what words YouTube has a problem with in English. But before I explain this, let me just say, Javier Milei is described as a libertarian, as an anarcho-capitalist, as far-right, as anti-communist. And in this viral rant, he is saying, do not give these awful leftists an inch. In fact, he uses a different word for it, which I want you to see. But the reason why this is important for us, and we're not Argentina, come on. But take a look around the world. The far left is losing. There was just a massive protest in Spain against socialism. Now, some people are saying, just like with Brexit, signaling the election of Donald Trump, the victory of Javier Milei in Argentina signals that in the United States, Donald Trump will win, and the polls are showing it. The only options Democrats have, well, it's going to be to bring in someone other than Joe Biden and hope. Oh, this person can win a narrative war against Donald Trump when the Republicans are already winning the narrative war. Now, a viral video showed Javier Milei saying merda over and over again about leftists. And you know what that word means in Spanish? I don't know if I'm saying it well enough, but it means, let's just go for it because we're going to play the video in Spanish, but warning for your kids, I'm about to swear. It means shit. Dude, I love this guy. It's yet to be seen exactly what he will accomplish for Argentina. But while many of you may say, I don't care about Argentina, understand the global phenomenon that is occurring right now. In a tweet from End Wokeness, he says, some reasons to be optimistic. Argentina just elected anti-socialist economist Javier Milei in a landslide. Trump beats Biden in all recent polls. The right-wing AfD is surging in Germany. Finland just formed its most right-wing government in its history. Anti-immigration party is part of the government in Sweden for the first time ever. Anti-WEF Farmer Party just pulled off a huge upset in the Netherlands and is surging. Le Pen's party is surging in France. Hundreds of thousands in Spain are marching against the socialist coup. Bukele has 90% approval after his crackdown on crime in El Salvador. And they came after him. They came after Bukele. It was absolutely amazing. They claimed that when he started arresting all these gang members, he was violating the Constitution. It was unjust. I don't know exactly what went down, but some people have been critical, saying some people got criminally charged, arrested just for having gang tattoos. I don't know what to say, man. I think innocent until proven guilty is very important, but I can tell you this. I was hanging out at, where was I? This was MGM, National Harbor. I was playing poker. Guy to my left. We're playing, we're having a good time. And conversation strikes up. I mentioned something about not being here for much longer. I said, where are you from? He says, El Salvador. And I was like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, we're going back. And I was like, you're going back? I was like, what do you think about Bukele and everything? And he said, it's amazing. So my family was here. Now we want to go back to El Salvador. Not only that, there are a lot of people in the United States who also want to go to El Salvador. That's how great things are becoming. You know, look, there are questions about how do we ensure the constitutional rights of good people. The problem is this. It's not so simple as to say that there is one line and it is absolute, because that's not the case. While we believe in innocent until proven guilty, there is an inverse problem to consider. That if you allow violent criminals to roam your streets, then people will be equally as victimized. And what we're trying to do is find a balance between stopping criminals, whether they be in the government or the private sector. My point is this. If you go too hard in the authoritarian direction, you may create a future where the government becomes the criminals. And we've seen it time and time again. And they'll just arrest their political opponents. Sound familiar? But if you go the opposite direction, then criminals will just start beating, killing, and stealing from people. You need to find that balance. It's not so easy. I want to show you this from Political Compass memes on Reddit. Javier Milei rants against leftists. It is a classic video. Classic in that it's not actually that old. But I want to play it. It's in Spanish. But for those that speak Spanish, you'll get it. Otherwise, I'll explain what he's saying. The translations are not perfect. The translations, my understanding, are made more for an American English-speaking audience. But let me play this for you now. Let me once again play this for you now.
De mierda no le podés dar ni un milímetro.
¿Me puedes definir zurdo de mierda que no
Todos
lo
los que
entiendo?
digamos los colectivistas.
Okay, you heard a few things. Mierda and collectivistas. He's saying all the collectivists, all kind of
Los que
collectivists.
ponen, digamos, o sea, esa idea. A ver,
¿Por qué le pones de mierda,
But
digamos?
why do you call them mierda?
Porque son una mierda.
Because they are.
Oh,
I love this
you
guy.
O sea, vos me decís, no, pero es que si pensás distinto te van a aniquilar. Ese es el punto.
It says in the subtitles, if you are against them, they will kill you. You can't give these people an inch.
Es decir, vos al zurdo no le podés dar un milímetro, porque le das un
Damn, I
milímetro y lo
should-
toma para
I
If you give them an
should've-
inch, they will use it to destroy you. Now
I was
again,
really hoping against that.
I have a very rudimentary. My understanding of Spanish is probably kindergarten. I can have very limited conversations. No, sorry, let me clarify. I can't have a conversation at all in Spanish, but I know a decent amount of words so that I could go to the store, I can buy things, I can ask directions, things like that. And so there are some things I heard in this, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like the subtitles line up perfectly. So I reached out
Damn it,
to.
I should have
yesterday and asked
traded.
him. He said, well, you know, it lines up pretty much. But the idea is basically there. This guy is saying these leftists are shit. They are shit, and they will kill you. Wow.
At Amazon Freight, we know the only thing better than having a friend with a truck is having a friend with a bigger truck. And a coast-to-coast fleet of trailers.
Well, in the comments, there are people asking about why this is. And one of the comments says this. For clarification, Milei's opponent is our current Minister of Economics, Sergio Massa. And this is what he has achieved. 56.6% child poverty. Record high inflation since the 90s. The dollar reached 1,000 pesos. He is printing 2 billion pesos a day. There's videos of his militants replacing opposing ballots with their own to commit fraud. Pensioners are getting like 100 USD each month. Price controls everywhere. Recently, we've had problems with gasoline supply because in a move to win votes through bribing consumers, he froze the prices of gas. This obviously resulted in shortages that lasted like 2 days. Massive social programs and subsidies, expansion to bribe people so they voted for him. Because we have import restrictions and a restricted access to the dollar, importing anything is hard as F. As this includes medical supplies. Recently, many big hospitals had to reschedule or cancel surgeries, had to postpone cancer treatments, and some medicine isn't coming into the country. I could go on, to be honest, but I don't think it's necessary. Source for all this, me, a tired and very worried Argentine. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the meme. My lord. Jack Hadfield says the libertarians actually did it for once. And here's a meme. And I love this meme. It shows a guy in a libertarian shirt, and he says, today I will vote for a third party. He then votes. And the results, typically in the meme, show a landslide for collectivists and leftists, and then the guy with the smug face smiling. In this one, it actually shows the libertarian winning. Wow, that's hilarious. You know what's always funny about this meme, though? For those that are familiar, where the libertarian smugly votes for who they want, and this results in the Democratic Party winning. I gotta say this to the Republicans who made this meme. Libertarians don't like you, dude. This is the funniest thing. I always hear from like a Republican being like, the libertarians just voted for Republican, then we would have won. Like, bro, libertarians don't want to vote for you. What don't you get? That's just it. Like, what don't you get? They're not going to vote for you. If you take away the libertarian vote, they're not going to vote for you. The argument is enough of them might, just to preserve, say, gun rights or whatever. But I don't think they're fans of the neocon warmongering. So, that being said, a lot of libertarians coming around to Donald Trump, unsurprising to say the least. So here's a video from Reuters. Argentina elected the right-wing libertarian Javier Milei as a new president as voters replace their hopes in a political outsider to fix an economy battered by triple-digit inflation, a looming recession, and rising poverty. I want to show you this. This is leftists in Argentina are crying and sobbing as their 40 years of rule has come to an end. Yeah, not all of them are sobbing. Many of them are sobbing. These people are insane. They are dangerous. They are evil. They are no different from Nazis or fascists. Do not let them take power. Congratulations to Argentina. Now, there's a mixed parliament or a legislative body. I think they're parliamentary. In which case, it will be a challenge for, I think they might have a congressional system. I'm not sure. There's no clear majority, which means he will have to negotiate. We will see. From Inside Paper, President-elect Milei vows end of Argentina's decline. The self-described anarcho-capitalist has pulled off a massive upset, ousting the populist Peronist coalition, which has long dominated Argentina.
Oh, damn, he's an anarcho-capitalist.
55.7 to 44%, a landslide. Now, Jack Posobiec and several others are pointing out that Buenos Aires got rid of paper ballots because electronic voting machines were causing problems. This allowed them to pull in the results very, very quickly and instantly see he won. Now, my friends, this guy is endorsed by Donald Trump. Trump congratulates Javier Milei on his win in Argentina presidential race. This is a guy who is anti-woke, anti-communist, supported by Bolsonaro and Donald Trump and Bukele. This is going to be very interesting. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I simply say, good luck, good sir, save your country. In the meantime, this may be indicative of something much, much bigger. As I pointed out early on, some people are saying that, like Brexit, this is a sign that Donald Trump will win in 2024. Well, Joe Biden's floundering and failing. It's apocalyptic for him. We don't know what the Democrats have in store, and it's not just about winning an election. I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump won the election but lost the vote. And that seems contradictory, but what I mean to say is Donald Trump convinced the American people to support him, but Democrats convinced more default liberals to cast votes. Thus, Joe Biden wins. Simplifying it again, Donald Trump and Joe Biden on stage, ain't nobody voting for Joe Biden. Door-to-door activists asking people to fill out ballots, everybody voting for Joe Biden. And that's what really bothers me when people are like, you really think Joe Biden got 81 million votes? Yes. Technically. I think Democrat activists secured enough ballots through door-to-door, door-to-door campaigns and ballot harvesting. I don't think people were enthusiastic about Joe Biden. I think Democrat ground game was better than Republicans. I've seen a lot of people scream, Ronna McDaniel needs to resign immediately, but she won't. Probably because she's a Democrat. Oh, let's be real. The Republican Party is failing across the board in a lot of ways. They're winning in some ways, but I mean, they should be doing substantially better considering the sentiment is on our side. And I mean Freedom Faction. Republicans should be winning in this regard. When libertarians are like, it's true about Donald Trump, no new wars, I get it. When even they're saying that, you should be earning more votes. So perhaps the Republican Party is just a bunch of losers. So be it. Right now, Donald Trump is dominating in aggregate. Take a look at this. This day in history. My friends, I want you to hear this. As of right now, with all the polls in consideration for RCP, Donald Trump is up in aggregate by 1.6%. There are many polls. Of the polls they have available, only 2 favor Biden. Trump is up 4.6 points in some. This day in history. On November 20th, 2019, Joe Biden was beating Donald Trump by 10 points in aggregate. Hillary Clinton was beating Donald Trump by 4.5% in aggregate. This is the apocalypse for Democrats. I don't see how they win. I don't see who they can bring in. I don't see how Newsom wins, even if Joe Biden leaves. What's Gavin Newsom going to say? I'm going to do what Trump is going to do? Right now, Trump has the support. It's a sight to behold, my friends, from the Daily Mail. Trump beats Biden among young voters in NBC poll. What? Whoa. Just 3 years after Democrat president held 26-point lead over MAGA rival ahead of the 2020 election. Donald Trump is leading among young voters? How is this possible? Donald Trump is beating Biden with voters under the age of 35. The new survey conducted by NBC News shows Trump leading Biden by 2 points, 46 to 44. In the latest in a series that have shown Trump pulling to the lead. But it is among voters 18 to 34, which are the biggest shock in the survey. Wow. Because if you go back, Biden won young voters by 26 points in 2020 over Trump, according to the New York Post. Part of the problem may be Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war, which has seen young people take increasingly radical anti-Israel stances, where 70% of 18 to 34-year-olds disapprove of Biden's stance on the issue versus 20% approval. Similar to the overall results, voters over the age of 65, they're basically in line with are the only group who majority approve of Biden's handling of the conflict. I said this before. Israel-Palestine has ended Democrat. There's 3 parties now. I'm going to put it that way. The Democrats had their progressive coalition. The Democratic Party welcomed Democratic Socialists. But with Israel-Palestine, it's done. And we saw this with AOC when she first got elected back in 2018. The left criticized her for walking back her Israel stances. She was very much free Palestine. And then when she got elected, she was like, well, recently she said the solution for Israel is targeted strikes. Why? Probably a lot of Jewish people live in her district. And now she's concerned about whether or not she will face very serious opposition should she take the pro-Palestine position. This means young Democrats will not vote Democrat. And we're seeing it right here. They're not going to vote for Joe Biden. They were holding rallies where they said outright they will not vote for Joe Biden because of Israel-Palestine. In which case, 10% of the Democrat voting bloc is 18 to 29, not even 34, 29. If Democrats lose 10% of their supporters, let's say 5% in the general, what, Trump's going to win 55 to 45? A 5-point swing in both directions? That would be bonkers. That's kind of like what we saw with Javier Milei. Let's say Democrats only lose half. 46% actually disapprove. With, it's 44% for Biden. So let's say young people are split, and they only end up losing 2.5 in the general, giving Trump a 2.5 advantage, a 5-point swing. Donald Trump wins. And you know what else? Here we go. Michael Rappaport. Oh, I love this story. This is from last week. Michael Rappaport says voting for Trump is on the table. Now, I want to say this. I will welcome anybody who wants to do the right thing. I don't care what their reasoning is for the most part. Rappaport wants to support Trump because he's pro-Israel. But understand this. Anyone who claimed Donald Trump is a fascist will destroy the United States, but is now saying they will vote for him because he supports Israel, is saying they care less about the U.S. than they do about Israel. Okay, I guess. That's messed up. I'll just put it this way. I don't care. Michael Rappaport could say he's voting for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is an a-hole. He could be like, I don't care if this guy destroys this country. Pig dick Donald Trump, I'm voting for him because I hate America. I'd be like, well, okay, fine, I guess. That's what he called me. He called him Pig dick Donald Trump. Like, if you're telling me you're going to do the right thing but for bad reasons, I may not trust you later, but I'll take what I can get. Because in the end, I think Donald Trump getting elected is the right thing. Now, that being said, Rappaport is hugely pro-Israel. And he's seeing far leftists talk about being pro-Hamas. And he's like, we got to get this under control. That's how he talks. I'm trying to imitate him. And he's like, so I'm going to vote for Pig Dick Donald Trump till we get this whole effing situation under control. Okay. Well, maybe Donald Trump is the guy to do that. We've been talking about this for years. The far left, if you go to Oakland, for instance, you go to Berkeley, seeing all the businesses with signs saying, please don't hurt us. I'm not kidding. They literally say, please don't hurt us. Now, most businesses just put leftist stuff in the windows so that they don't get attacked by the far left extremists. But some of these businesses, there was a Burger King saying, please don't hurt us. That's the future the left wants for you. These are evil people. Javier Milei is correct. They are evil people. A Trump supporter don't care if you've got a BLM flag in your window.
This is the story of an American college student, Michelle, and
BLM will smash your windows out if you don't have a BLM flag in your window. Don't believe me? Look at Hamburg, Germany, several years ago. There's a photo where all the businesses are destroyed, and then one right in the middle is fine. Why? They put a leftist communist red salute in their window. That's right, the red salute, the communist symbol, much akin to the swastika, in their window, symbolizing all the death and the murders in their window. And you know, the leftists said, okay, we'll leave you alone. Who wants to live in that reality? Who wants to live in that world? Guy Benson says, can they screw this up? Fox News poll, issues the GOP handles better than Democrats. Border security up 24, national security up 20, terrorism up 18, inflation up 12, foreign policy up 12, crime up 12, spending up 11. How could Republicans lose when you've somehow convinced Michael Rappaport to consider voting for Donald Trump? This dude's whole thing is walking around and filming himself talking about how he hates Donald Trump, and now he's like, I'm gonna vote for the guy. Okay, he's considering voting for the guy. It's on the table. Michael, I tell you this, I respect it, but these leftists are not gonna give you an inch. So you call them out for their support for Hamas, which they're doing, and they're gonna give you the middle finger. Your only option, if you oppose them, is Donald Trump. Nothing else I can tell you, man. But if Michael Rappaport wants to join the fray and have a conversation about, I welcome this. You know, we're reaching out to his team to get him on the Culture War podcast. Check it out Friday mornings, 10 a.m. on Tenet Media on YouTube. Some people have asked, what is Tenet? It's a super group, as it were, right? You know, sometimes a bunch of different musicians come together and form a band, and you're like, wow, look at all, like the Traveling Wilburys. That's basically what we're doing with Tenet. Independent company, but brings together a bunch of different voices that are, you know, doing their own thing, but now we can cross-promote between each other with this massive opportunity. I'm super stoked on it. But we want to bring him on the show. Why? Bro, Michael, I welcome you. I implore you to come on the show and just do nothing but rag on Trump and tell me exactly why you don't like the guy. And then explain why it is you think you got to vote for him. I mean it. I mean it sincerely. I want this dude to say, Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did this. I'm like, wow, those are all really bad things. And then he'll be like, but these leftists are pro-Hamas. And I'm like, wow. All of these things you hate about Trump, that you're angry about, and you recognize the far left is a bigger threat. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. But I accept it. And I'd love for you to state that. Why? I want more people to hear it. I want everybody who's in that same position as Michael Rappaport. You're allowed to not like Trump. You're allowed to not want to vote for him. You're allowed to vote for somebody else. But this dude's at the point where he's like, the left is so bad, I got to consider voting. Trump's on the table, baby. Really. I'm glad he's figuring that out. Because I feel so similar. I think Trump is bad in a lot of ways, but I think he's the best we've got. There's no such thing as a great president. Trump has done some bad things, worthy of criticism, but he's better than the rest. Shout-outs to Javier Milei, to Argentina for your victory. Let's see how we play this one in 2024. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.
Who's pumped for tax season? Let's get out there and crush those taxes. Who's with me?
We know some freelancers who are pumped for tax season. This year, hire a tax expert on Fiverr.
Done. Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds. I know Halloween was a few weeks ago, but right now, the big wireless companies are trying to trick you into signing.
Beloved, welcome back to the shop. Have you been feeling lately like there's just no point of doing all the things that you've done in the past? Feeling like there's no joy in things that you previously enjoyed? As for me, personally, I've always loved winter. I look forward to it, the wood stove and getting the firewood, looking forward to the winter activities of snowboarding and skiing and snow biking, more than anything. I've always preferred that over summertime. I find myself, especially this week, just having a hard time getting motivated to do anything, asking myself, what's the point of all of this? The things that previously brought me so much joy and entertainment, now I look at them and they're nothing. They're actually almost just the opposite. It's like, I just don't have any passion in it. I don't look forward to it. I don't even want to do it. I realized something this morning or yesterday is when I was going in public school, high school, grade school, I never fit in very well. I was not a great student. I just felt that there wasn't much point to all of it. And I was told, just because you're not smart enough or you don't work hard enough or you just can't get your head into the game. And I think I figured out what it was. And what it was there's a percentage of us in this world that resist the programming. And I believe from the very beginning, and I don't know why, I can't explain it. If this is resonating with you, you may be one of those people. But I've always been that person, and I didn't know it at the time. I just was told that I was dumb or lazy. What I know now is that God has set aside some people for some reason. I don't know why. If it's to be in a leadership role, to be a pastor, to be a teacher, an evangelist, I don't know what that means. But given some of us the ability to resist the programming. And when I look back from first grade through high school to so many things that so many people were doing, I always found myself on the outside, spending a lot of time by myself, always been a loner. I think one of the reasons why is because I found it hard to relate to people. I couldn't get into what they were doing. I couldn't be involved with it. What I see now is that God has made us a particular way to reject some sort of programming. Now, what does that mean today? Why are there so many of us out there? And I know you're out there. You contact me personally and privately. I've watched YouTube videos, shorts, TikTok videos of people trying to get a handle on this. Why is there no joy in life? When you look around, not a lot of things have changed. It's not like there's a great famine in the land. Yes, things are expensive, things are more difficult, there's a lot more uncertainty in the world. But if you were to remove yourself from that for a time, everything's the same as it's always has been. All of God's creation is basically the same. We're not having hail and brimstone fall. The seas are not rising, regardless of what people tell you. The weather and climate is relatively the same. There are outliers and different things, but for the most part, it's hard. It's nothing you can put your finger on. Maybe you've got problems financially. A lot of guys are losing jobs, and I get that. But it's different than that. That's something that we've always had to deal with. This is something deeper and more internal. When I look around here, all the things that I've surrounded myself with, things that have brought me joy, hobbies, adventures, motorcycles, just everything just seems so meaningless now, so pointless. And it's not that I've already done it. I mean, I know myself well enough. I mean, I have a short enough attention span where I can reinvent. And God's seasons are perfectly timed. You know, just when you think you can't bear summer anymore, the fall and winter comes, and they change. And it's just enough change to keep you from stagnating. But this is something that's darker and heavier and deeper. This is even beyond what I would call a depression. I've struggled with depression in the past. I'm sympathetic to that. I know. I get that. But this is different than that. I think what it is, gentlemen, is that God is moving us away and focusing on things that are really important. And what's not really important are all these things and these hobbies and these distractions that we've erected in our lives to keep us from answering the real question, and that is, what does God want of me and what am I supposed to be doing? I guess it comes to the point, you know, we have the Old Testament, we have a lot of the stories from the patriarchs that there were a lot of them that were called to do God's work and they didn't want to do it. You know, Jonah, when asked to preach, you know, we know the story of him. What I think it is I think that a lot of us have been called to do things that we have resisted because we were uncomfortable, we didn't want to get into ministry, we didn't want to do this, we didn't want to do that, and we occupy ourselves with distractions. And now the time is so short that this whole world is starting to unravel, and the coming of the Son of Man is very soon, in my opinion. That God is taking away things that previously brought us joy to focus us on what is truly important, that is getting ourselves ready and our hearts right with God. It's kind of a bummer, you know, for me personally, to not have those things that I've looked forward to so much, but rather than sitting around and getting involved, you know, and trying to cover it up with drinking or extracurricular activities, maybe we need to really take a hard look at that and realize it for what it is, that God is removing this joy from your heart for the things that wasted your time because he has a work for you. There's something important that I need to be doing, that you need to be doing, that a select group of people have been called to do. So I would encourage you to hang in there. Be faithful, be faithful, be faithful. It all looks so depressing. It all looks so helpless. And before you make any rash decisions, just be calm and be still and remember God is in charge. And that the reason why he's taking these things away from you is because he has something more important for you to do, something that you were destined or designed to do, that he wants to partner with you. So be faithful, persevere, stay in prayer, be reading your Bible, and look for the signs and look for the direction that's going to be coming to you as to where he wants you to go. Don't look at this as a bad thing. Pray and thank him for taking these distractions that would keep you from entering into the kingdom. And thank him for making you change your heart and your mind to be better prepared for the work that we have in front of us.
Do you know who's in charge of the CIA right now? Because it occurred to me yesterday that for all the research I do and for all the bullshit I talk about the CIA and other intelligence agencies and whatever else, I don't know who the director of the Central Intelligence Agency is right now in 2023. So I found out. Damn. And boy, did I find out. So today we're going to briefly meet Billy Burns. We're going to learn about his buddy, no joke. And then we're actually going to take a huge detour into this whole other rabbit hole. It's really interesting. Really, this is a video about the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, not about Bill Burns, the director of the CIA. That's just how I got down this rabbit hole in the first place. And if you've been following me on the TikTok, on the other channels, you know that we're currently doing a lot of deep diving into think tanks, trying to figure out what the hell is going on with these think tanks. Well, this is another one of these think tanks, and it's a big one. Like, according to Penn State, it's like the biggest one. So let's rewind and start at the start here, and I'll just run you through everything I know so far. We're trying out this new format where it's basically just like I'm just a guy doing research, you know. I mean, I don't have some big studio, I don't have any team, we don't have any script. I'm just putting together this massive Obsidian file of all different parts of the US government, of different think tanks, of different private and public companies, all sorts of just different information that's gonna all link together. And slowly I'm learning what's going on. I'm trying my best to share with you what's really going on here. Because it sure doesn't feel like democracy is going on, in case you have been living under a rock. So anyway, welcome nerds. Let's roll that intro and start study group. Conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
It's so sick that we can't talk about it. It actually lifted up, and it could actually turn.
All right, Billy Burns, current director of the CIA, assumed office March 19th of 2021. And you'll notice my handy dandy cheat sheet of weird things he's connected to. I was just minding my own business, building out my U.S. government tree where I have all of the senior members of like the president's cabinet and the whole executive branch. I'm just building out a whole chart with all of them. We'll get to the legislative branch in a minute. Like, that'll be a whole other rabbit hole. I'm gonna need to hire some assistants. But anyways, Bill Burns. One of the first things you might notice about Bill Burns is that he was in office in the Obama era, a little before, and he had all these different positions in office through the Obama era until 2014, when he left government. And then he became the director of the CIA in 2021. So he had this wide open period in the middle where he was, what were you doing, William? I swear to you, I'm not just typing in this guy's name in every Google search. He just keeps coming up when I'm looking up other stuff, namely William Burns, right there. Wall Street Journal article, right here. And this is not like some inside scoop. This is not breaking news at all. This was a big controversy when William Burns was nominated. And the media addressed it and swept it all away like, oh, it's no big deal. Yeah, no relationship. Calm down. See, here's the inside scoop. Burns, who now is the director of the CIA, he met with Homeboy a decade ago when he was preparing to leave government and enter the private sector for the first time. And, gosh, I gotta figure out my screenshots so they don't get cut off on the side. But anyways, our boy, whose name I'm not gonna say out loud, he was shared with Burns as an expert in the financial services sector, and he offered general advice on the transition to the private sector, she said. There was no other relationship. And documents containing the private calendars of our homeboy revealed that Burns met with him a few different times in 2014 when he was doing this transition. This was before he had been the director.
Wait.
Where he was... What were you doing, William? I swear to you, I'm not... Okay. So, anyway, welcome, nerds. Let's roll that intro and start study group.
Conspiracy theories are dangerous. Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
It's so sick we can't talk about it. It actually lifted up, and it could actually turn.
All right, Billy Burns, current director of the CIA, assumed office March 19th of 2021. And you'll notice my handy-dandy cheat sheet of weird things he's connected to. I was just minding my own business, building out my U.S. government tree where I have all of the senior members of like the president's cabinet and the whole executive branch. I'm just building out a whole chart with all of them. We'll get to the legislative branch in a minute. Like, that'll be a whole other rabbit hole. I'm gonna need to hire some assistants. But anyways, Bill Burns. One of the first things you might notice about Bill Burns is that he was in office in the Obama era, a little before, and he had all these different positions in office through the Obama era until 2014, when he left government. And then he became the director of the CIA in 2021. So he had this wide open period in the middle where he was... What were you doing, William? I swear to you, I'm not just typing in this guy's name in every Google search. He just keeps coming up when I'm looking up other stuff, namely William Burns, right there. Wall Street Journal article, right here. And this is not like some inside scoop. This is not breaking news at all. This was a big controversy when William Burns was nominated. And the media addressed it and swept it all away like, oh, it's no big deal. He had no relationship. Calm down. See, here's the inside scoop. Burns, who now is the director of the CIA, he met with Homeboy a decade ago when he was preparing to leave government and enter the private sector for the first time. And, gosh, I gotta figure out my screenshots so they don't get cut off on the side. But anyways, our boy, whose name I'm not gonna say out loud, he was shared with Burns as an expert in the financial services sector, and he offered general advice on the transition to the private sector, she said. There was no other relationship. And documents containing the private calendars of our homeboy revealed that Burns met with him a few different times in 2014 when he was doing this transition. This was before he had been the director of the CIA. At this point, he was like a diplomat for the most part. He had spent time in Russia, Iran. He actually had a lot of relevant diplomatic experience to today's modern world. But like, I can't help but wonder why in 2014, after this guy had already been convicted of soliciting Snushin from a Snyder, right? Why was he being chosen or shared with U.S. diplomats to help them enter the private sector, to help them get a job? Like, dude was the ambassador to Russia and the deputy secretary of state. Homeboy was connected. Billy Burns could totally have gotten a job in the private sector on his own, right? Right? Why did he need Epstein's help? And what job did Epstein... shit, I said his name. And what job did he even help him get? Curious, huh? Well, that's where shit gets really interesting. Because it turns out that William Burns, in between his little government and government time, he became the director of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. And if you don't know about the name Carnegie, the robber barons, it set off a few red flags for me. I didn't know anything about this organization, but I figured maybe I should do a little research. And I didn't have to do a whole lot of research before I noticed that Elihu Root was the first chairperson and the first president. This guy, who we met before when we were researching the Council on Foreign Relations. That's weird. The same dude helped found the Council on Foreign Relations and the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, two of the most prominent and important think tanks in the world. Were both founded right around the time of the Federal Reserve and World War I and a lot of stuff. And they both have some interesting connections. I mean, like, first of all, let's remember that what we just found out is that this dude was like, oh, a U.S. diplomat that needs a job in the private sector? I know the perfect place for you. I'll send you to the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. But I also couldn't help but notice that the chairperson of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace during 47 through 53 was Don Foster Dulles. During the same years, the president of the Council on Foreign Relations was Alan Welsh Dulles, his brother. These guys helped found the Central Intelligence Agency. They did a lot of other very sketchy things, which you can watch a YouTube video about on my channel. I'll try to put a card up here somewhere. History of the CIA. Go check it. It's spicy. And I also noticed that the current chairperson of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace is Penny Pritzker. And if you don't know about the Pritzkers, we'll do a whole other deep dive on the Pritzkers and on the Harvard Corporation later. So anyways, my section for the Carnegie Endowment starts growing, and I'm like, next step, follow the money, baby. Where are they getting their money from? What are they spending it on? What do they actually do? And to be clear, I still don't know what they actually do. I got no idea how they're spending all this money. Because this is straight off the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's website. They gave them a $1.2 million grant. That was in 2020. So I got curious and went to the spreadsheet of all of the data for all of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grants ever given in history. Turns out that they are really down with anything that has the name Carnegie on it. You need some Bill money, you just start something that says Carnegie and they got you, bro. They got so many grants for all sorts of Carnegie things. It's crazy. But corroborated, there's the grant we're talking about. There's another one, both for the Endowment and National Peace. But it's not just Bill and Melinda, or Bill, really, like, let's be clear, Melinda got the fuck out of there. It's also the MacArthur Foundation, who's given almost $25 million to them since '88, including 44 grants for nuclear challenges and human rights. What does that mean? Because that's a lot of money. But wait, there's more. Here, let me get real close and squinty so I can read this. The Hewlett Foundation, they've given approximately $24 million since 2001. The Ford Foundation has given $4.75 million since 2006 to 2020. The Mellon Foundation has given $840,000 since '95. The Sloan Foundation has given $1.3 million since 2009. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund has given $1.3 million since 2017. And George Soros, the Open Society Foundation down here at the bottom, they've given, holy moly, $6.5 million just since 2016. That's a lot of money. How do you think a think tank spends, $50 million or whatever they got? So, what does the CEIP do with all this money? I don't know, but I know that they publish books. Not sure how many millions of dollars that costs, but books like A Public Role for the Private Sector. Interesting title, guys. Yes, we're giving very Schwab-y vibes right now. There now exists over 60,000 multinational corporations with more than 450,000 subsidiaries in every corner of the world.
What the fuck?
In the process, most people believe that multinational corporations deliberately undermine national regulatory systems and drive standards down to the lowest common denominator. Yet, many companies participate in collective efforts to develop... I see where this is going. Public-private partnership? Corporations really aren't so bad. They're actually great. They're actually self-regulating. Actually, we don't even need to regulate them. They're just good people, just doing good by the whole world. Which is why it's a great idea for American policy to be that corporations run the government. Because corporations are the best at running the government. Like, better than the people. I mean, why have a democracy when you could have a corporatocracy, bro? Alright, anyways, let's talk about the president. Not that president, this president. Tino Coelho. Not really sure. I think he's Brazilian, maybe? And yeah, Tino's got like a whole host of things going on over here. Not the least of which being, he's part of the Harvard Corporation, which is the oldest corporation in the United States and the most powerful governing body at Harvard. You know, this Harvard that we were recently studying over on the Tic Tac. You know, this Harvard that has close ties with the CIA and lets them conduct spy operations in their college campuses. The one that looks suspiciously like it's been recruiting high-end diplomats and politicians for years. I mean, realistically, like...
You motherfucker.
Obviously, Harvard is where they're training diplomats and politicians and, like, world leaders and CIA operatives and stuff. That's the point of Harvard. But once you start looking into the Harvard Corporation, like their board of directors, so to speak, you start finding people that have other connections that seem interesting. So that's where we'll go next. Harvard. Not literally. They won't let me in. We'll just dig through their dirty laundry on the outside. So, a quick summary of what we just learned. Joe Biden recruited the current director of the Central Intelligence Agency straight out of this think tank. Interesting. Score one for think tanks being tied to intelligence agencies, in case we didn't already have ample evidence of those ties. Furthermore, he had been placed at that think tank by a certain dude who has ties to intelligence agencies, as well as a lot of other fucked up shit. Why was he recruiting the directors of said think tanks? I don't know. I have no idea why this guy would have had any connections at that think tank. And we learned that that think tank takes in a lot of money from a lot of foundations with names like Rockefeller and the like. By the way, when someone calls himself a philanthropist, this is what they might mean. Oh, plus they get tax breaks for this, for contributing to whatever the hell is going on here. And I'm definitely not going to say we cracked the case on how they're spending many millions of dollars every year, but they at least publish a few books. They write some papers, they give some advice. It's an expensive business to run. I don't know. I got a lot of questions still. The research never ends. That's why this is so great, because we don't know what the fuck's going on, and no one will tell us. And when we try to research it with publicly available information on the internet, like a basic Wikipedia article, for some reason big tech censors us and takes down our TikTok videos, or what have you, because it's dangerous to understand how the US government works. Like, well, what's going on, guys? You trying to hide something? What you trying to hide? Trying to get learned, you know? Is this kind of stuff that we would learn if we went to university? If I paid like $400,000 a year to go to Harvard, would they teach me about this at Harvard? Is that the kind of thing you teach me there at spy school? Because I'll go. I just need to make a little more money first. So, speaking of, subscribe to my locals. Check it out on Rumble. Links in the bio. Like, share, comment, all that. I'm trying to go to Harvard. Costs a lot of money. I'm trying to be a super spy. So, if y'all could support my super spy fund, that'd be great. I'll see y'all next time.
Conspiracy theories are information is the oxygen of a democracy.
Republicans, progressives, libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
Are you still only getting a job on your birthday? Then you need the new and improved Fleshy Pro 2.0. It's the automatic you-know-what machine that turns a quick one into a near mystical experience. Finally, no more begging her to slurp on the gherkin. Rejoice, men, because it is time to become your own professional salad tosser. Get ready to tweak that Twinkie. Prepare to bang that meat like it owes you money. But wait, this won't be any...
I am not very familiar with what you do, but I believe you've done a couple videos about how dog shit I am, I think.
Did you watch the videos?
No, of course not. I have a policy of not really watching videos such as that one, specifically because it will frustrate me.
I've gotten numb to the criticism. Like, it's not. As a matter of fact, I seek it out now.
You want to debate about a video you didn't even watch?
Why? Yeah, of course. You made the video. I'm not like debating a random person about a video I didn't watch. You made the video, so let's hear.
I know, but
what
that
your
kind of like
gripes
that kind of
are.
links up to like my big criticism with you is that you don't actually put in the bare minimum effort to research anything before you jump to conclusions. That's why you're tweeting when you're like, hey, I want to debate Willie.
Do you really consider me watching a fucking dumbass YouTube video from a drama farming channel to be doing research? I don't need to do research
this is what you're
on a
talking
video.
About. You're going into a topic you don't know anything about.
Brother, just give me what you want to say. Hey, give me what you want to say. The video's about me, isn't it?
Yeah, so sure, fucking talk to me about what the points of the video are, and let's discuss it. The do you mean? My main criticism.
Why would I have to research a video about myself?
Because you don't know any of my criticisms. So now I have to provide all the context and do all the legwork for a debate you challenged me on. And it allows him to lie to his audience because they don't know the framing either.
I have to watch a dumbass talk for 25 minutes and jerk off like all the talking points that I've heard about myself over and over again. Incredibly stupid. Give me the takes, and we'll talk about it. Okay, go on.
Yeah, my take is that you have a pattern of behavior where breaking news happens, you jump to wild conclusions talking way too confidently.
Okay, give me an example. Pause. Example. Give me an example.
All right,
Are you going to talk about... Okay.
There was reports that Ukraine was going to be invaded by Russia. You confidently said no, it wasn't, despite all the reports. Then Russia invades, and then instead of apologizing and correcting the story, you then
Wait, I didn't apologize and correct the story?
justify the invasion.
Wait,
right?
I didn't apologize and correct the story?
Let me finish my.
Wait, hold on.
No,
this is
the pattern of behavior.
Because you said you. Wait. Hold on. You're the one who doesn't do his research because I did apologize.
Hassan is clearly setting the tone for just how bad faith he's going to be. He thinks he's catching me in a lie when he's not. He just won't let me explain myself.
I did apologize, and I did correct the record.
You
just didn't fucking see
You
it.
kind of walked it back too.
Wait, no. I very clearly apologized for it. You didn't see that because all you do is look at fucking clip.
It's in the video. It's in one of my videos.
So why did you just now bring it up as though I've never apologized?
I didn't. You cut me off before I finished. Hassan did apologize for his baseless claims saying Russia was never going to invade Ukraine. But in that same apology video, he would make more baseless claims saying Russia was never going to attack Kiev.
There's been a lot of information that has been wrong, completely wrong, and there's still a lot of information that the Western State Department is pumping out by way of mainstream media about like Russia is going to go and overtake Kiev and they're going to go into Ukraine. The reason why I'm saying a lot of the information that's coming out of the State Department is wrong or outright false is because what I'm showing you right now is literally fucking people talking about like bombing Kiev. Okay, their take was Ukraine is going to be invaded, Kiev is going to be invaded by Russia. That is insane. That's psychotic.
The top comment of his apology video is, I was wrong, but the West keeps lying and saying they're going to attack Kiev. Well, that apology aged like milk. It's not much of an apology if you do the same exact thing immediately afterwards. That's my point. But he won't let me explain that because he knows it'll make him look bad.
Why did you say I never apologized? Why did you just say I
because
never
you
apologized?
Justify more. You then make more outrageous claims.
I'm sorry. Why did you say I never apologized if I did and you just repeated? You just repeated after I said no, I did apologize. You moved the goalpost. You moved the goalpost and you tried to fucking act like I was just backtracking.
I didn't move the goalpost, dude. This is exactly my criticism.
You did.
I didn't move the goalpost. He just never let me finish my point. Is this what you're going to talk over me when I'm giving you the answer?
No.
I'm giving you a very straightforward answer. I did do that.
Okay.
I did cover
So you said I did apologize, but it wasn't
good
enough for you. Is what you're saying?
And I showed you apologizing for making your completely, like, fairly baseless claims, jumping to conclusions, and then you followed that up by making more baseless claims, jumping to conclusions.
I'm sorry, you fucking brainlet. Give me what the fucking inconsistency was. You made the video.
I didn't realize that in debates it was illegal to take 2 minutes and look things up.
What is the claim?
I gotta go pull it up in the video because you didn't
prepare for your own fucking. You didn't prepare where you were literally coming on here to talk about not Israel Palestine, mind you, but about Ukraine, and you didn't even fucking prepare with talking points.
I'll talk
really?
to you about Israel Palestine. That'll be the next point. It's you doing the same thing again. Well, dude, how do you impromptu ask me to debate this minute? If I had a day to prepare, I would have everything, but you didn't. From my point of view, he invited me on to debate right now. I don't have all my timestamps listed out for my year-old video, and then when I sent him the link, he said he didn't want to watch it. All right, you gotta give me a minute.
Okay. Are you trying to link me your video? I'm not gonna watch your video. Just say it with your mouth, with your words. Go ahead.
I have to watch my video to see what my receipt is because this is a year old. Right? I didn't know where. I didn't know where.
You don't even know your own video. You don't know the contents of your own fucking video.
I made it
Really?
a year ago, bro.
You think you're doing a good job right now? Do you think you're doing a good job right now, defending your position? Like it's such a profound position. It's such a profound position that you don't even fucking remember your own talking points.
I'm trying to get it for him, but he won't stop talking. He's yelling in my ear while I'm trying to listen to my video to hear what he said. He clearly doesn't actually want me to pull it up. I'm sweating. He's demanding the clip, but I can't hear.
Tell me what it was.
Bad faith in me into the ground.
Go ahead. I'm here. All right now. If you are genuinely interested in truth and research or whatever, you have this wonderful opportunity. You have this wonderful opportunity to ask me personally.
To pull it up. I'm trying to listen, but I'm hearing you twice. Once from my video and once from you just bitching in my ear.
Oh my god.
So you gotta wait. Yeah, that's how
this is the
research works.
greatest. This is the greatest brain power we got, folks.
He's laughing at me for doing research.
I love that he's like, I don't remember my talking points. I have to watch my own YouTube video.
So when I finally confirm the clip and get my point across, he gets mad at me because he knows I'm right. So he asked me the most ridiculous question to derail the conversation. It was in your video. I was wrong about Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
He said people are acting like Kiev's getting bombed, like that would never happen, and then it's literally did happen.
Okay.
So you're just making more you're making your apology video about being wrong and making baseless claims that you know nothing about.
This is your take. This is your take from February 22nd, 2022.
Yeah.
Another thing that I was.
Again. You've done it since then.
I've done it since then. People are acting like Kiev's getting bombed. It did happen. You're right about that.
Did,
I also. Do you think that I didn't cover? Wait, hold on. Do you think that I didn't cover Kiev getting bombed? Like I hid that or something?
No, you did, but it's your accusation saying it doesn't, saying it won't happen. There's no way it'll happen.
Yeah. Do you think that bombing Kiev specifically, well, it was what Russia did? Do you think that was a good thing for Russia to do?
What the fuck? So apparently you can't criticize Hassan for his poor coverage of Ukraine without also thinking Kiev should be bombed. Makes sense.
Do you have any genuine opinions?
Think it was a good thing.
Do you have any genuine opinions about
my opinion
Russia's
is that was
involvement
bad.
in the
My opinion on that is that you shouldn't be talking about shit.
Brother, hold up. We're having a conversation about Ukraine and Russia. We're having a conversation about Ukraine and Russia, and I'm asking you a specific question. I'm asking you a specific question.
My conversation's about you, because my videos are about you and your paranoid behavior and your poor reporting. Look how mad he is. And this is what he tries to do the entire debate. Ignore the actual criticism and pivot to unrelated talking points. He says Russia had not bombed Kiev at the time.
Russia had not bombed Kiev at the time. That's number one.
Of course they hadn't. The criticism is that you baselessly predicted otherwise. What's that have to do with my criticism? He then says once it happened, he covered it.
Number two, of course, as soon as that did happen, I covered it. Of course I did.
Again, what's that have to do with my criticism? He gets mad at me for calling him out on this.
Because that's what I'm doing.
The criticism isn't that you didn't cover it. The criticism is that you're making baseless claims you don't know anything about, talking so confidently, as if you got a whole fucking research team behind you. When you don't, you're talking out your ass. This is the
brother. Do you have a whole research team behind you? Because you're not.
Me. I actually did research just now, and you could barely be patient enough to sit there and listen through it. Hassan's main argument is that he shouldn't be criticized for his bad predictions because they're based on solid sources.
Did you look into what sources I was looking at and where I was getting this opinion from?
His source that Russia won't invade Ukraine is from December. I'm criticizing him because in February he was uploading videos like this.
I'll change this every day to Ukraine has still not been invaded by Russia every day to make sure that the wishes of these fucking weirdo, like I'm actually a sock them and you're a fucking tanky idiots on the internet. Change it to Russia still has yet to invade Ukraine.
As of the 18th of February, 6 days before the invasion, it was insane to have this opinion because Russian troops were lining up with medical tents on the border. Here's Vosh from the same day.
Bridges are being built, field hospitals constructed, and all of that, I think, is quite worrying.
Dude, that's that. Dude, if they're building field hospitals, is a pretty committed indication of being willing to bring about like prolonged warfare. That isn't just moving your troops to the area. If they're building war infrastructure like that, like Hassan be like, it's just a meme, it's just a meme.
Hassan's opinion was a joke at the time. It's not only in hindsight like he'd want you to believe. Hassan didn't have the strong foundational analysis he claims he had. It's him rewriting history in real time.
On the editorial side of my coverage, if I make a prediction or a speculation, it can sometimes be wrong. That speculation is always going to be on foundational analysis that is solid. My speculation on what may happen, in the future is not always going to be correct. Everybody understands this.
It's usually wrong, yeah.
It's usually wrong. The only example you brought over...
the CIA is why I ran down the U.S.
Do you attack on U.S. consulate in Iran happening now? False flag. 100%. MEK false flag. MEK actors, 0% chance that is so fucking sussy. Oh no. Oh, that's what's going on in Iraq, the American base that was under attack? No fucking shot. When I say MEK, I just mean CIA. I said MEK, but I mean CIA.
The only information available at the time is from the U.S. State Department. He's talking out of his ass. He then implies that you're racist for listening to the State Department.
Rumors saying the missiles were launched from Iran? I mean, dog. Come on, bro. Yes, dude, I'm wrong, okay? It's probably Iran. You're right. It's probably Iran fucking blowing stuff for no reason. You're right. Let's believe that instead.
Hassan's defense to this is to say he doesn't remember.
What base are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about with the Iranian thing. What?
I ran from the U.S. base. And then you said it's the CIA. No shot. It's the CIA.
Wait, I'm so...
I know, you don't know because you spew so much bullshit all the time you can't even remember.
Yeah, perhaps.
Wow, you don't remember something from a year ago. Crazy, because when I did that, I got nailed to the cross for it. When you do it, it's no problem. Cool. What's frustrating is no matter how many examples I bring up of Hassan jumping to conclusions when it comes to breaking news, he always frames himself as coming from a sound place. So for instance, like the missile hit the Gaza hospital, both sides blamed each other. That's the breaking news, right? And
Yeah.
instead of waiting for more information, you jumped to conclusions saying it was 100% Israel. 100%.
Okay.
You were so
Good
confident.
point.
You were deleting all the
Good
chatters.
point. Good point. When I said that, I didn't just go, "Oh, I have no other opinion on this matter. I simply think Israel definitely did this because I want Israel to have definitely done this." The reason why I said this, and you do this regularly, okay? When I say something on the stream, okay, oftentimes, especially if it's
Did
a
you watch the
developing
video?
story,
How do you know I say this stuff?
especially if it's a developing story, when I say something on an issue that is happening, I look to all of the circumstantial evidence on the matter. You're bringing this up, and this is really important to understand. One, all of the
You
circumstantial
say that every
evidence.
time, but it never is.
Okay, all of the circumstantial evidence at the time, of course, after the 6,000 bombs that Israel had dropped on Gaza, a densely populated open-air prison, the 6,001st bomb, understandably, was going to be an Israeli bomb. To this day, we still do not know whether this was an Islamic Jihad rocket that was misfired, or whether or not this was actually
Right, it's an
an artillery shell that might have hit a fuel tank,
Yeah.
or even some other kind of munition that
So
Israel may
why
have
did you
deployed.
say it was
Now, the reason
100%
why
Israel and then call everyone genocidal freaks that disagree with you?
you don't actually
call everyone
watch the
genocidal
content
freaks, you
beyond
demonize them.
because first of all, because they
Just
are.
like you- And there it is. If you believe in the overwhelming investigations that say this was not an Israeli bombing, then you're genocidal. He's proving my point.
On the editorial side of my coverage, if I make a prediction or a speculation, it can sometimes be wrong. That speculation is always going to be on foundational
remember-
analysis that is
I got
solid.
enough-
IDF didn't bomb the hospital? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yes, it fucking did. You fucking piece of. Yes, it absolutely did. Fuck you. Fuck you. You genocidal scumbag. You have no fucking dignity. You do not have an ounce of dignity inside of your soul. But it doesn't matter. Terrible that the people died, but I encourage you to look into where Hamas was firing. You fucking piece of shit. You garbage, monstrous scumbag. You garbage, monstrous scumbag. You said IDF didn't bomb the hospital, and then you said it did. Still a piece of genocide denier, 100%. But no, it is not a fucking misfire.
Guys, up until this moment of the stream, his foundational analysis was a tweet.
The number is now at 887, according to on-the-ground reports. My friend in Gaza tells me I smell the death now.
When bringing this up to Hassan, he shifts the topic from his poor reporting to the Israeli government virtue signaling about the war. He does this because he knows he's got it. So why did you say it was
Now, the reason
100%
why-
Israel and then call everyone genocidal freaks that disagree with you?
you don't actually
everyone
watch the
genocidal
content
freaks, you
beyond.
demonize them.
Because first of all, because they
That's what
are.
you do every time,
Because the
by the
Israeli
way.
government
You
is
do this all
genocide.
the
What the
time.
fuck are you talking about, you dumb
fucking
4,500 children have been ruthlessly
Oh, now
slaughtered. You
shift
think
the
that's not
topic again.
genocidal?
Shift the topic again
Oh,
to
the one
something I
hospital
didn't
might.
even say.
Wait, Willie, shut the fuck up and listen, dumbass.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
really
go
think?
on, do it.
Do you really think that if one fucking hospital?
This is Kelp, Shark vs. Octopus, a two-player game of hide and seek with totally different roles.
Wasn't bombed by Israel, and this was a fucking actual misfire that all of a sudden means that like that all of a sudden means that like Israel's not doing ethnic cleansing.
Right now, you're doing it in real time.
Dude,
It's
just
hilarious.
fucking answer my
It's not
question.
even
Do
what I
you
said.
think?
It's not what I said. He's derailing the entire conversation again. It's weaselly debate tactics.
Do you think that the ethnic cleansing campaign, if you take out the bombing, okay,
Yep.
if you take out the one time that this hospital's bombed, okay, if you take that out, do you think out of the equation, do you think Israel is all of a sudden not doing ethnic cleansing in Gaza?
No, that's not what I said. Look, this is what you're trying to
I'm
make
asking
me
you.
say.
I'm
I
asking
didn't-
you. Okay,
I just said no. I just said no. And
Okay,
Dude,
good.
dude,
I'm
what
glad.
I'm
I'm glad.
saying is
Okay,
people
so what's
look
your?
at the reports and
Okay,
get
got it.
matters
Got it.
if
No.
they're wrong,
Got it.
Hassan, throughout the stream, likes to push the narrative that I took him out of context. How would he know? He didn't even watch the video.
The reason why I said this, and you do this regularly, okay? When I say something on the stream, okay, oftentimes, especially if it's
Did you
a
watch the
developing
video?
story.
How do you know I say this stuff?
Especially if it's a developing story. If I misspeak, apparently you can use it in your commentary as though it's like super serious. So anyway,
I didn't name one example that I did that.
I don't
When
know. I
did
don't watch your videos, so
Yeah, so don't make shit up. If I did do that, it should be easy to prove. He won't because I didn't. It's a false narrative. If anything, the more context I add, the worse it gets for him.
If you look at a 30-second
That's the
broadcast,
criticism. It's not 30 seconds. You keep saying that. It's
okay,
not
if you
30
look at a
seconds.
5-minute
It's not
portion
30
of a
seconds.
fucking
You're fucking
brother, you're not listening to what I'm saying. On the very same
bombed by Israel, 800 people dead. That was your stream. What did I do to title it that? I didn't do that.
Okay.
I didn't clip that out of
Can you
context.
please
That
listen
was
to me?
you.
First of all, I knew it
Because
said
what you're saying
800.
is
I
irrelevant.
don't
You're
know
just
if
going
it said
on
800.
about
That's so fucking
random. He did say 800.
Update from 8 minutes ago. Between 200 and 300 people killed in Gaza hospital airstrike according to Hamas-run health ministry from 1 hour ago. Wait, what? No, the number is like 800 now.
And when confronted by viewers to change the title of the stream because he was wrong, he did it. He doubled down.
IDF didn't bomb the hospital. Change title. IDF didn't bomb the hospital. Yes, it did.
He then lies to me again, saying he was just reporting what the BBC said.
Okay, I was literally repeating what the BBC coverage was. Not only that, but also because like I don't have a direct on the ground. I wasn't.
Well, did the BBC say it was 100% Israel when they blamed each other?
The BBC's original assessment, yes, was that it was most likely an Israeli bombing.
Hassan really liked to hammer me on this point. Jump to conclusions.
Of course, yeah, I jumped to the same conclusions that the BBC did too.
If you use the Wayback Machine and go to October 17th on the BBC's website, the BBC clearly reported that that's what Hamas claimed. On the day of the bombing, Hassan was mad that the BBC made this distinction, even calling them racist.
I love that they keep saying Hamas-run health ministry, like it's not the fucking health ministry. It's ridiculous. Like, oh, Hamas-run health ministry. Well, you know how they are. You know how those dirty Arabs are. They lie all the time. You know what I mean? They're probably lying again. Is there a fucking moment where Western media will be honest about this? Like, I know we are cruel here in the West. I know we've done so much. We've done so many awful things, so many unconscionable things. But I really, really thought that there would be at least a little bit of clarity from the media.
Ironic. The BBC reporting what Hamas claims is not the same thing as Hassan saying it for a fact happened and that you're now racist for believing any information that says otherwise.
Your statements, by the way, on this, your fucking bloodlust and your genocidal support for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians will not be forgotten, okay? I don't know how you will be able to live with yourself for the rest of your fucking life, but you are literally, personally championing genocide. Shame on you. Shame on you. I want to be as charitable as I possibly can, but shame on you.
All he said was the IDF didn't bomb the hospital. Siding with what's most likely true is now genocidal.
Oh, here. Here. Okay, I'm gonna put this side by side. I want you to fucking understand something, okay? So that is a JDAM called on. Do you think that seems similar? What am I looking at with my own two eyes? What are you looking at? I have no evidence. Don't believe your fuck. What do you mean? Does that strike you as a fucking misfire?
Do I even have to give commentary here, or does my point speak for itself?
In your video, do you, I don't know, at any point bring up any of the resources that I'm using, like including the BBC, which you said?
Yeah, I showed the tweet you used. Yeah, I did. I showed the tweet you used of a missile striking the ground, going, doesn't that look like a JDAM? That actually looks a lot like a JDAM. And look how he tries to weasel out of it.
Yeah.
That's your epic reporting. Those are your epic sources, bro.
Yes. My epic sources. That was the only verified video of the strike at the time.
I know. Like, you're a
do you know where I got that?
Like, you know how to
do you know where I got that video from? Do you know where I got that video from?
Where?
The Washington Post. That's where I got that video from.
Yeah, but you don't know how to interpret what that missile is.
That's really interesting you say that, because at the time I was talking. At the time, that's really interesting because at the time I was talking to open source intelligence people and also forensic analysts. That's what I was doing, and I still do.
He's lying. If you go to his October 17th stream, the only thing he does is read tweets that disagree with mainstream media reports.
An actual Hamas misfire killed 7 people, okay? It fell into a crowded area, and it only killed 7 people. Misfires from Hamas missiles do not have the capability of destroying an entire fucking hospital. This is what it looked like. Exactly like every other fucking Israeli bombing campaign. Now, here's Evan Hill, working as a forensic investigator at the Washington Post.
This guy does not say it was an Israeli bomb. All he did was report the same thing everyone else did. But Hassan acts like it's otherwise.
Video of the moment of the blast at Al-Ahli Hospital, geolocated by the Post, captures a whirring through the air. Air and then a blast, followed by orange flames. IDF blames Islamic Jihad for a failed rocket launch which hit the hospital in Gaza. You think that there is not proof for this? You think that there's not proof for this?
There isn't. So where are these forensic experts that Hassan claimed he talked to? Because they're not on his stream, you can go watch it yourself. He's just lying. Here's another lie. He blamed GeoConfirmed for his poor reporting.
I'm reporting on this kind of thing, especially when it's outside of my immediate expertise or whatever. Yeah. I go to people that are making real-time assessments. One of the things that I'm sure you didn't mention was the GeoConfirmed Twitter thread.
But if you go to the last 40 minutes of his stream, GeoConfirmed corrects the story. And Hassan still writes them off.
Oh, here, by the way, someone making fun of the final conclusion of GeoConfirmed. So a missile exploded in midair, and then a piece of that already exploded missile hit a hospital and killed hundreds of people. This is the absolute dumbass that you... You guys are putting forward as your conclusive analyzer, okay? God damn it, brother. Jesus Christ, that's how stupid. How f***ing stupid.
How is he going to say this about geo-confirmed and then bring him up in our debate as an excuse for why he can be wrong? He does this because he's willing to say anything to get out of being held accountable. That's his third lie. He's again proving my videos right. His next big argument is that since I called him out on being wrong, I now have to call out everyone who's ever been wrong on anything ever.
Every single point that was brought forward in the immediate aftermath of the hospital was actually completely incorrect. But you didn't make a video about that. You made a video about me. Because if you made a video,
about you. Yes, you finally get it.
Stop. Listen. Let me finish. If you care about misinformation, maybe you should, I don't know, make the next video about IDF and all the times they fucking lied about every single bombing campaign.
So you're saying because I made a video on you, I now got to make a video on Israel?
No, you don't have to do anything. But you can't also maintain the position that you care about the truth and honesty in journalism, like you're a Gamergate holdout, being like, oh, I care about the ethics of video game journalism. That's why we have to dox these female journalists or some shit.
I didn't dox anyone, bro. What are you talking about?
I didn't say that. I'm using. Do you know what a fucking analogy is? Dumb.
I honestly don't know what Gamergate is. What? Do I look like Captain Palestine? I make videos on YouTubers and streamers. It would be completely out of my depth to talk about the ballistics of a missile. You might be comfortable talking about things you know nothing about, but I'm not.
I do not know if there's a deployment, like an activation that Israeli munitions have that can detonate way before it impacts the ground.
This is insane. How do his fans not see this? How many times can he be wrong, not apologize, and demonize everyone else for criticizing? He does it in the
As a Christian artist, I want to create freely and create
debate, always pivoting the conversation or coming up with a whataboutism or reverting to outright lying rather than just owning up and doing a better job next time. You not watching my videos is the same level of reporting that you give Israel and Gaza. It's the same level of reporting that you give Ukraine.
I'm gonna be honest with you. If you think you're revealing how stupid you are by claiming that watching a fucking YouTube video is the same as like reading news reports and talking to on-the-ground journalists and forensic analysts.
No, I'm not. I'm saying you won't even do the bare minimum and you won't even do it for a drama video.
I'm losing my fucking mind.
The last topic I wanted to touch on was Hassan radicalizing his audience. Now, in general, I think creators get held to way too high of a standard when it comes to what their audience does. For example, iDubbbz making edgy jokes and getting held accountable because some high schooler decided to actually be racist is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Because again, iDubbbz was just making jokes. He's a comedian. However, when it comes to Hassan demonizing anyone who doesn't line up perfectly with his misreporting, it doesn't come across as a joke.
You bad faith, apartheid defending, bloodthirsty, genocidal freak.
Now, it takes me a few tries to get Hassan to actually engage with the question. Do you feel like you radicalize your audience? Because your audience calls Ethan racist, even though he's pro-Palestinian, right? And the reason why they do that is because whenever anybody just reports like a basic fact, like Israel likely didn't do the Gaza hospital bomb, right? Your response is to freak out and call that chatter genocidal and say that they hate all Arabs. You feel like you're radicalizing them to do it. I mean, they do it for a reason.
Are you in your own assessment here taking things out of context over the course of an 8-hour broadcast where you think maybe
it's all in context.
No, you don't know the context.
You gotta prove
because you can look at it because you can look at a banning that is occurring on a stream and not recognize that banning is happening because it might be a sock account. That banning might be happening because someone is bad faith. That banning might be happening because I'm sorry, we're talking about how I cultivate my community and how I moderate my community. How the is me telling you how I moderate my community irrelevant? Everything it seems that goes against whatever narrative you want to frame is irrelevant in your opinion. So yeah, no wonder you want me to just watch the fucking YouTube video and sit in the goddamn shadows. Everything's irrelevant. You're asking me questions about how I operate. This is supposed to be a research. This is supposed to be a research, isn't it? Are you not supposed to be doing fucking research right now on your subject matter? So what's irrelevant?
You're asking, hold on. I just said, are you radicalizing your audience?
I need to get better at this shit.
Huh?
Meet Google Pixel 8 Pro. Get Video Boost for a smoother view.
The horror itself, Heinrich Heydrich, the father of Holocaust. In 1935, he wrote, there are two types of Jews. Zionist Jews who want to move to Palestine and assimilation Jews. Assimilation Jews, we kill them. They don't Zionist Jews, they're potentially our friends and partners. We should. No, my idea is that it will sound so naive, but I like Jews here. Not that they shouldn't move somewhere if they want. Jews are, for me, an extremely important part of our culture.
Today's guest needs no introduction. Simply put, he's one of the world's most famous philosophers. Slavoj Žižek has written 3 books coming out this year. This is one of them. And it asks a pretty critical but simple question, namely, are we, humanity, heading towards catastrophe, and what can we do about it? But before we have that discussion, I want to give you an update. Here at Novara, we're looking to gain 5,000 new paying supporters before the end of 2023. And good news, we've just passed the 2,000 mark. So if you like our work here at Novara, and if you want to help build people-powered media, from our daily show on YouTube to our articles, podcasts, and downstream as well, then support our work by heading to novaramedia.com/support. The link is in the description below. We ask that you pay as much or as little as you can. It can be just £1 a month. But that monthly payment really helps, because we can build and plan and coordinate with an eye towards the future and helping create people-powered media. So without any further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Slavoj Žižek.
So this is video. Second thing, so that I don't make a mistake. Don't be afraid. I will
Please.
stop my joke. Just like this is okay. Closer.
Will you move a lot, or do you think you'll stay
No. I will not do the Fred Astaire while saying, dancing, and so you know that I'm such a horror. I'm a nightmare. True Stalinist. Never in my life did I dance, sing in public, smoke a cigarette, got drunk, and taste any, even the softest drugs.
You never got drunk?
No.
Really?
You know why? I'm really a Stalinist, not superficial. You know what's my idea?
Please.
The world is a dangerous place. If you get drunk, you want to embrace people, you get kind, and then you don't recognize the attack, you cannot defend itself. No, we must stay sober, paranoid to see where the attack is coming. That's my spontaneous stance, you know. Like
the paranoid style
the paranoid
of Žižek.
Absolutely. The problem is that I don't live up to my own standards. The way I almost screwed up, ruined my 2 sons, there, of course, it's another story. You cannot even imagine being such a liberal as I was in the education. You know, like I remember this story once. I returned home 20 years ago. My son was doing homework towards the evening. You know what was my reaction? How dare you do this? You are doing homework? What about the horror movie on the TV? It will watch itself by itself. Sorry, losing time. Any other orders? To what style are you used here? Like interrupting, lively conversation, more... No, don't say this to a madman. Like the last, yeah. The last. You already know it. Story. I will tell you one in the United States. I was signing books, and a guy told me, "Please, I like your obscene, dirty jokes. Please write a dedication to my book, as dirty as you can imagine." I looked at him and said, "Listen, you are talking to a madman who takes things literally. You will really get it." And he said, "Yes, please, yes." Then he was offended because I wrote, "Imagine I'm screwing your mother up her ass in a dirty toilet up to her knees in urine." And then he was mad. And I warned you, you're talking to a madman. Okay, stop. Do you want to give me any precise instructions?
Well, the questions are as specific as possible, so because then you can go as general as you like. Because obviously, if we ask a general question, then you go meta-general.
That's very good, because usually No, you should. I give you the full right in advance too. You know, it's good that you have black dress. It would be better to have been leather with a whip, a domina. No, sorry, seriously. In the sense that, but if I escape too much into and get lost, please feel free to interrupt
Don't worry,
me and so on. Because you know my old joke, but it's true. People call me Fidel, not because my God, one of my tasteless jokes for which I was prohibited in Cuba is, you know, when I was in Cuba. I encountered a guy, probably he was a spy following me, although I was privately there, and I felt his heroism, how he showed me all the poverty he showed me. But his point was, you see, in spite of all this economic ruin, poverty, we are still faithful to our cause, no? And then I said, oh, that's why your leader is called Fidel Castro, fidelity to castration. Like, even if we are castrating ourselves, we are faithful to it, no? It's horrible. I really didn't like this in Cuba. This very perverted pride in, look, our misery and poverty is a proof of our greatness. You know, that's one type of a left that I...
Well, that's Christianity, right? You're describing Christianity.
Do you think?
Was that?
Really? Oh, I think Christianity is such a mess. So, okay, let's not lose time. Let's not lose time.
Right.
Okay. You can, whatever. You know what the most evil thing, the last one, I cannot resist it. You know what you should do?
Go on.
You should use these clips, but manipulate them so that you use this as my answer to a totally different question.
Oh, we do that all the time anyway.
Yeah, to make me appear an idiot, no? Sorry? You know what I give you what I call when I do a video interview pornography. I call it a pornography consent that they can use clips, which means with this how we discord this
Deepfakes.
Sorry,
Deepfake.
Yeah. That you take a couple of shots of me, you put it on a hardcore, and I'm half dead screwing a lady. I give you consent for all of this. You know, just if you this sells well, you should give me a small percentage.
Good. We'll give you a royalty.
Yeah.
Slavoj Zizek, welcome to Downstream.
I'm proud to be here. I mean it seriously because we live in. Everybody knows this, but one has to emphasize. We live in dangerous times, and precisely in such times, thinking is needed. People are totally wrong who think now times are quiet. No, then you are too lazy to think. In the situations of urgency, which is today's situation at different levels, I think this is what makes many traditional Marxists hate me. I think the time is to turn around Marxist Thesis 11. It's not philosophers have only interpreted the world, we have to change it. It's maybe in the 20th century. We tried to change the world too fast without really understanding it. The time is to interpret, understand the world. So that's why I am glad to be here, even if I will not maybe convince many people. I hope I will make them reflect, think.
Is that why after the Arab Spring and all the uprisings of the early 2010s, you went away and wrote a 1,000-page book on Hegel? Because it was precisely then that you had to do the hard thinking about
know what that was.
About the world? Because this is a very different book. That was very abstract. I loved it, by the way. And this is obviously very concrete. So what kinds of thinking do you mean?
I also mean that very concrete situations need also very abstract thinking. Not to go into that Arab Spring. The lesson of Arab Spring, it's a very sad and interesting one. It's the same lesson as that of Syriza, which was a miracle, but it went wrong, and so on. Here I'm Hegelian. Hegel is not this stupid absolute idealist who think at the end everything will turn out well, blah, blah. Hegel is, on the contrary, obsessed, if you really read Hegel's historical analysis, with one thing which is needed more than ever today. How? Something that was originally a good idea, almost with a kind of a necessity as a rule, turns wrong. You have French Revolution, freedom, bloop, terror. You get October Revolution, in spite of all problematic things that Lenin did. At the beginning, no, it was not just, as some people think, a Bolshevik coup d'etat. It was a right popular movement. 10 years on, you get Comrade Stalin, nightmare embodied. You know, don't we need a lot this today? This not simply pessimist spirit, but what I, without shame, call moderate conservative spirit. By this, I mean, I'm still a communist, but you can use this. I repeat it all the time. A moderately conservative communist. Yes,
Moderately
communist, which means for me,
conservative
obviously, we're in deep crisis, radical measures will be needed. But at the same time, this is what I admire with intelligent, moderate conservatives. Think well how things can turn wrong. And for me, the Arab Spring was one of the effects of this. Even that's why, it may surprise you. I never fall when I was young. My God, I'm old like Earth. I was already there, 68, the big revolution. What was the actual result of it? All its goals turned wrong. This was first. It was the attack against alienated factories. This serial work, you just work in line automatically. They were against this. Nice. What did we get? Are we getting today? Precarious work, total uncertainty, and so on. It's even worse. They were against alienated. This oppression of women and so on. We get today's promiscuous sexuality, which in a way objectifies women and others even more. Education against alienated universities, yes. And now we are justified to have a nostalgia towards this big alienated university. You get just quick specialized courses, learn quickly for this specialty, for that. You see, that was needed in 68. Yes, a beautiful project, but think about how it can turn wrong.
So when you hear the catchphrase, which is from 68, of course, demand the impossible, you say no. Do not demand the impossible. Demand the very possible.
I would, again, as a philosopher, I like to complicate things. I would say like this. What do we mean by impossible? My first reaction to this point is to focus on what counts as possible and what counts as impossible. It's not as clear as it may appear. Listen, today, we are perceiving as possible this singularity, artificial intelligence, we will lose our individual mind, blah, blah. That's possible. But till the epidemic, to raise taxes for 2%, oh, it would ruin our economy, it's impossible. If there is one good lesson from the epidemic, is that there were a lot of measures, like billions distributed to ordinary people, almost in a communist way. Trump had to act as a communist. You remember, every family got a check for Trump. So, you know, first, let's be very specific what we consider as possible or as impossible in a certain situation. Maybe we should change the view here. As with artificial intelligence, of course, we are approaching a breathtaking change. But I think that all the projections that we have of artificial intelligence taking over. On the one hand, the pessimist projection. We will be totally regulated by mega machines. We will lose our individuality. On the opposite hand, it will be like theology actualized. We will become one with God. They are obvious nonsense. I don't know what will happen. I know this will not happen. So, you see, that's my first reaction. That be precise. Declaring something possible or impossible is always also, I'm sorry to use this old obscene term, an ideological category. In a certain situation, it appears like this.
What about rights? That is one term that everyone loves in America. The right, the left, the wokies, the libertarians. There's a broad consensus that in America we have rights.
One of the founders mockingly put it, what are we going to put in our Bill of Rights? The right to get up when you want, go to sleep when you want? You can't list all the rights. That's all the possible things that human beings could do. What you don't have, though, you don't have a right to welfare. You don't have a right to health care. You don't have a right to self-esteem by making other people praise you for whatever you're doing.
This is not the sanitized version of, the founders with powdered wigs talking about abstract principles. This is Tom West exposing the whole of the founding, including the parts of it that make us uncomfortable.
We've lost the frame for thinking clearly about politics in the modern
Hello?
world. I can do anything. I can become a cat. I mean, this is one of my favorites.
Did you always want to be famous?
Sorry?
Did you always want to be famous? Because you have this wonderful life, for most people, where you travel the world, you talk about interesting things, highly educated man. You can have an opinion on films, people love it. You can have an opinion on politics, people love it.
Let me make a step further here.
Please.
Yeah, but I go dialectically to the end here. I even have an opinion on films that I haven't seen, Like what I wrote about Barbie and Oppenheimer, it's now a public secret that when I wrote that, I haven't seen the films, I'm a Hegelian, that famous Hegel's stance, if reality doesn't fit what I proclaim to be the notion of truth, so much worse for reality. And I stand by this. After writing my piece, I was convinced to see just Oppenheimer. And I should have been even tougher for the film.
Yeah.
I'm now a little bit repeating myself of what I said at other places, but, Oppenheimer is a good film. The political part, all that committee, how Oppenheimer was manipulated, doubly. But I hate that spiritual part, Bhagavad Gita, and so on. Isn't that horrible? To repeat and story that I'm selling all the time. You remember the movie Oppenheimer caused a scandal in India?
I didn't know this.
Yeah, you know why? Because when Florence Pugh and Oppenheimer make love for the first time, I think she asks him, or the other way around, I don't know, to read Bhagavad Gita. And the Indians exploded. That's the sexual act. How can... I agree with Indians, but in the opposite sense. A beautiful sexual act, and they spoil it with reading parts from one of the most obscene, disgusting sacred books. Bhagavad Gita was the book which Heinrich Himmler had all the time in his pocket, because this was his reply to how to kill the Jews. His ethical problem of Himmler was, yes, we are doing horrible things, killing Jewish children, mothers. How can we do it without becoming beasts ourselves? His answer was Bhagavad Gita. This acting to a distance, all that pseudo-oriental bullshit, So, but back to your point, fame.
What?
Don't you think that I can even give you a list of how I'm very suicidal, systematically ruining my general acceptance or fame. It began with my critique of cancel culture and political correctness.
That was a big deal.
Sorry?
That was a big deal.
Yeah, but do you know how many people now dismiss me as a secret right-winger and so on?
can be.
Although I always emphasize, I'm absolutely for all the goals of
Probably
LGBTQ
not. I don't know,
how
maybe.
many letters you have.
LGBTQ, yeah.
Yeah, it's longer now, the latest. But and cancel culture and so on, I see. But what worries me is that the way this is practiced is deeply counterproductive. Because I think I don't know, don't ask me how to do it, I don't know. But isn't it crucial for the left, instead of getting caught in this self-divisive censoring, you use that word, what if it's still secretly racist and so on, to think in terms of broad coalition. For example, I think it was none other than Bernie Sanders who at some point said this. He said, I was always radically pro-abortion. But it's not enough to say just this. No, we shouldn't make any compromise here. But what if we think in these terms? First, we should inform people how wrong this idea is propagated all the time by those who oppose abortion, as if abortion is typical for middle-class career women who don't want to ruin their career. No, these statistics are wrong. These famous middle-class promiscuous women, they know how to take care of themselves. The majority of abortions came from poorer women who already have 2-3 children, cannot do more. So the way I would address people who are against abortion, I would tell them, okay, we all agree abortion in itself is not a nice thing. I am not for abortion because I think it's a pleasurable, penetrating experience for a woman. It's the opposite. But I would say, what if we try to, you keep your position, me mine. Can't we think in the terms of how to make abortion less needed, less attractive, better health care, more care help for the families, and so on and so on? And here, this was Bernie Sanders' answer. You see, we should always focus on this, how to build a broad coalition.
Seek converts, not traitors.
Yeah.
So why do you think the left, because this is something you talk about in the book, I mean, you basically sort of project two poles of attraction politically, far-right ultranationalism, and obviously far less powerful, but you talk about an extremist form of left-wing, quote-unquote, woke politics. Where does the latter come from? Why has it emerged?
I think that, still, here I remain some kind of very problematic, for some people, Marxist. I think that as it were, the key to the crisis is nonetheless that there is something not any longer functioning well with, I'm sorry to use this term because it's a jargon term, with global capitalism. Obviously, this was made clear by the 2008 financial crisis and so on. And I think that while, of course, I'm here very open, when, for example, women's rights are concerned, or gay rights, or whatever, we, if I may count myself still as some kind of a radical leftist, we should, of course, make tactical alliance with center-left, politically correct liberals to counteract direct racism, anti-feminism, and so on. But at the same time, and again, Bernie Sanders made this clear, at the same time, we should never forget that Trump is not an original fact. He didn't fall on our happy earth out of context. All of a sudden, everything was functioning nice. Then, no, he reacted, or he reacted to a deep crisis felt by millions of ordinary people. He exploited this in a way which was totally reprehensible, you know. So, again, totally against him. But the key is in the malfunctioning of our global capitalism. And I don't have even here a clear answer. It can be proven economically how disparities are growing. For example, I'm here, I will say something with which I hope we will all agree because it's a very center-liberal common sense. The basic condition of normal life is this, safety of social order. And I'm saying this as a leftist. I was never fascinated by this big bullshit, you know. Tahrir Square or Syriza, 1 million people on the market, on the main place. Yeah. I am, that's my old joke, probably you know it. I am the morning after leftist. How will ordinary people feel the change when the enthusiasm is over? How will their life, ordinary daily life, how will they be affected? That's why I got many hatred from French leftists. You remember, some 2-3 months ago, there were those big demonstrations. And I said, but I am more for law and order there, because I read analysis. You know, those demonstrations were basically destroying things, cars, stores, mostly, almost exclusively in the poor suburbs. And I think that's one of the resources of Trump. We should listen to these cares of the ordinary people who like security and so on, which is why, let me give you a very problematic example along the same lines. I repeat it all the time, but I think it's worth repeating. Recently, I talked with a lady from ANC, African National Congress, and asked her, is this all this bullshit true that, you know, what I read in the media, South Africa is approaching a failed state? And she told me, she, radical leftist, something so sad. She told me the predominant atmosphere now among the poor blacks in South Africa is nostalgia for apartheid. Isn't this horrible? She said life was more stable because it was a police state. Standard of living was the same, maybe even slightly higher. And this is, you see, the dangerous situation, where you have all these racist and falsely anti-racist temptations. You know, for example, the anti-racist temptation is Mugabe way. You have a new black government which is utterly corrupted, so you play the game of let's blame the white people because they still control the situation and so on and so on. My standard line here is, maybe you know it, you saw the movie V for Vendetta. Yeah. In my Stalinist universe, that movie would be burned publicly. Why? Because it ends, you know, the end scene. The people occupy the parliament, win. My standard joke is I would sell my mother into slavery to see V for Vendetta Part 2. But what will then they do? The next day, the left is in power. How will they change the power structure? What will they do? Nationalize things or what? That's what the left should focus on. Enough of this enthusiastic freedom and so on and so on. I am, shocking as it may sound, law and order leftist. Our promise should be not this enthusiastic freedom and so on. Our promise should be we will change in a way that you will feel the change, the daily life. And cases where this succeeds, they achieve this, the left, are very rare. For example, in Latin America, the only clear case is, but now maybe things are going worse, is, I admit this, I was linked with them, Morales, Linera, Lucho Arce, Bolivia. Morales was 12 years in power. The standard of ordinary people went up, but nonetheless, they did it in such an intelligent way. They didn't scare out the capital, and They, you remember, then there was a coup d'etat and they were even re-elected. I like this type of pragmatic left which is not caught into their own slogans and then take the easy way. When things go wrong, oh, we will blame the imperialist enemy, you know.
So was the Russian and French revolutions a mistake then? Because obviously those weren't law and order leftists. Those were massive ruptures to the French Revolution against an entire mode of being.
Here it may surprise you. First, I don't have, let's begin with Russian Revolution. I'm very critical of Lenin, but nonetheless, as a Hegelian, I don't buy this Trotskyite story. You know that if only Lenin were to survive for 3-4 years...
So he's an idealist, not a
he would have made a pact
materialist.
with Trotsky throughout Stalin, and then what? Big socialist democracy, no, maybe a little bit better, but nonetheless, and I'm ready to go even further back here, it's clear that I don't care if he wanted Lenin this or not, but Leninism obviously did open up the space for Stalinism. You cannot say it was just a bad surprise. And you can find this clearly in the ambiguities of Lenin's desperate book, State and Revolution. As for the French Revolution, I'm a little bit... It's my first puberty love. I don't want to renounce it for Jacobins. Let's make things clear. For me, one of the greatest ethical figures, or two of them rather, in world history are Robespierre and Saint-Just. Read their works. Don't listen to that bullshit. First, they say the horror was the liquidation of Danton. I forgot his name, at a round table with a British historian who said they were right. Now, in some old British archives, they found it. Danton was financed by the British, you know. But I want to say another thing. They saved France with winning the war, the Jacobins. Then, in the last 3-4 months of his rule, Robespierre was obsessed with the idea how to end the terror. He saw this deadly machinery is getting dangerous. So, just follow detailed history. All his last purges were against leftists who were usually at the same time corrupted and wanted more terror, like Joseph Fouché, the evil embodied, who did horrible things for Jacobins. Then he was the Minister of Interior for Napoleon, then he turned against Napoleon. So this was the big problem of Robespierre and Saint-Just. They were already practically ignored by the Jacobins and by the Gironde, the other pole. And they desperately tried to appeal to those lower mid-level, neither left nor right, members. And this is why it's very tragic. Robespierre knew what is happening. In his last speech in the convent, or the one the day before, he says openly, this is my testament. I know I will be killed soon. And there is some so wonderful letter where he says, I know where history is going, towards a new imperial figure like Napoleon. And he says, shall we, Jacobins, follow that path? No, I would rather lose my head. So if you read it really closely, Robespierre is one of the rare cases of a guy who, yes, entered a little bit close to the abyss of terror, but then saw clearly the horror and consciously risked his life. Not even risk, he knew he is lost to stop it.
Are you sick and tired of watching your cash burn away from rising utility costs? Stick with me for the next 30 seconds, and I'll reveal the little-known secret of how homeowners are breaking free from rising power bills with the new Massive Money Savings Program and going solar for nothing up front. Hi, my name's Dusty, co-founder of Pure Light Power, a locally owned solar company where we help homeowners stop renting their power and start owning it with zero upfront costs.
Dude, that guy's so close, dude.
You see, in the past, solar was expensive, and it took years for customers to see a return on their investment. Today, that is no longer the case. The federal and state government recently allocated $1.4 trillion to renewable energy. that allows homeowners with qualified roofs to go solar with no upfront costs. So before, what used to take years for homeowners to see savings, now they're seeing savings day one with the Zero Out-of-Pocket program. This is a power bill from Judy, a customer of ours last year before going solar. $313. This is a power bill of Judy after going solar with us. $10. Now you're probably wondering, what's the catch? And unfortunately, there always is a catch. Only roofs with a certain pitch, direction, material, and shading report qualify. Good news for you, you can click on the Learn More button below and take our 30-second survey to find out if your roof qualifies right now. I do need to warn you of one thing though. This program is expiring soon, so you need to act fast and take advantage of these incredible money-saving opportunities before they go away forever. Click on the link below, find out if your house qualifies right now.
Mobile games are going big. Clash of Clans is now available on PC with Google Play Games. Experience more ways to play and sync your in-game progress between your PC and mobile devices. Immerse yourself in the world of Clash of Clans with a larger PC screen and mouse controls. First-time players on PC will also receive $7 off your first in-game purchase. Get started by downloading Google Play Games today.
But the point you made about being a law and order communist, which I understand in 2023, but obviously this idea of revolution is so critical to leftist understandings of how progress has simply happened throughout history. That can be the Haitian Revolution, the Bolivarian Revolution, etc., etc.
Bolivarian Revolution, you mean Chavez?
No, the original one.
The original, and the liberation of slaves. Chavez was lost cause from the beginning.
No, I mean the literal liberation of African slaves in South America.
No, I know the story indeed.
Yeah, but maybe the viewers don't. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. Yeah. So, were those mistakes? Should those not have happened?
No,
clearly there's a place for huge disruptive politics in history.
There is, but I think that I'm here simply a pessimist. That the way Hegel saw it correctly, no, you have to go through this terrorist moment, which fails, and then the true struggle begins. Will anything good survive from this? Hegel saw this very clearly. Well, he condemned the French terror, but he made it very clear that, nonetheless, a more liberal democratic order was possible only through that excessive moment. Or to give you another example that I like, I read a book, I forget which one, Old Senile, which deals with this problem and says, even if not actual violence, at moments of radical emancipation, you at least need a threat of more radical, deadly measure. For example, this guy looks at in the 60s, Martin Luther King for full black emancipation, the struggles. And he said, why did Martin Luther, more or less, the struggle goes on, succeed? Because behind him there was a threat of much more violent radical blacks. Look at Mandela. The apartheid regime made a deal with him because they were afraid. There were much more radical blacks waiting, getting ready for much more radical measures. So I'm here simply a pessimist. I think that, yes, of course, violent measures explode, but then what comes after is usually, quite often, a little bit of a better state, but in the second moments later, like even 68, I'm, as I already said, critical of it. But nonetheless, look, how we talk about women today. This is one of the lasting legacies of 68. Forget about that sexual liberation and so on, that was commodified and so on. But the way we talk about gays, the way we talk about women, our sensitivity for racism and so on, this precisely became a moment of our daily ideology, this time in a good sense. By ideology, I mean how we spontaneously experience the situation. So no, but now things become more sensitive, because I think we have to judge it case by case. For example, it was not violent, but it was a rupture. The only really big thing that recently happened, and I hope we will all agree here, is something incredible. It's the Iranian, after that Kurdish girl was killed by the Islamic police, whatever, for not having wearing a scarf. It was something incredible. Millions of people, first women, then ordinary people, not just Muslims. You know why I like this? Because this was not the boring politically correct feminism you know of, are you he or she or they? This was a big social explosion, and women's struggle become a focal point to which all other struggles, even the struggles of Muslim men, attack themselves. This is how we have to learn from Iran. we caught in our sectional struggles, like, you know, the ones between trans and TERF among feminists and so on. Otherwise, like... sorry, what was your question? I lost it.
We were saying about, you said on the one hand you're a law and order communist.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you're saying that, like, well, implicit within that for me is that you basically would discard any possibility of change through evolution. But now you're saying that actually
No. I think, no. I just think we should judge it from case to case. For example, let's go to the literally burning Gaza question today, Hamas. I was booed out, attacked all around Germany, really cover story, for just saying that I unconditionally reject what Hamas did. And this was not an empty phrase, because my Israeli friends who are left there, close to Palestinians, told me they knew people in that kibbutz and raving part. They were the best of Israelis in the sense of how to relate with Arabs. And it's clear that Hamas' attack on them was destined not so much to win over Israel, but for decades in future to block any chance of peace. It was a war to make sure that there will not be a peace. So there I am absolutely unambiguously against Hamas. What I'm just saying, adding, and for this I was vilified, is not relativizing this attack of Hamas, but inquire into that you cannot even understand it without. Now everybody is talking Hamas versus Israel. What about 4 million Palestinians? Is there any perspective for them? Like, you know, I have connections there on the West Bank with Jews and with Palestinians. And I'm not saying anything subversive. You know that Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, said recently Israel has to stop this daily violence against West Bank Palestinian farmers, burning their fields, killing them, and so on and so on. That's even liberal media now in Israel admit this. Here, in this concrete situation, I think that the Hamas-style violence, and don't forget that Hamas was, everybody admits this now, was not created but helped a lot by Israel, because they thought if Palestinians are split between West Bank, which is more PLO, secular, and Gaza, more
how do we get
Muslim
10?
fanatic, they will not be united. So this will postpone a two-state solution because they don't. So what I'm saying is that in this case, concretely, I don't think violence helps. It can bring a catastrophe to all sides, to Jews also. My fear is this one, that because of what Israel now is doing in Gaza, this will give a new push, everybody knows this, I'm not saying anything original, to anti-Semitism all around the world. Let's be frank, till now, anti-Semitism was more or less limited, not quite, but let's say to European and Middle East world. Now, we live in what, with horror, I call unholy alliances. For example, I repeat all the time, Uganda. You know this, they now established a law with absolute majority, only one member of parliament abstained, to criminalizing homosexuality in a crazy way. If you are caught in a homosexual act, you can be put to death and so on. But you know how they justified it? That this is a struggle against ideology of colonialism, homosexuality. So what I am afraid is that, and this is what Putin is aiming at, is to create a kind of a very perverted anti-Western coalition where, again, to be against feminism will be part of anti-colonial struggle. To advocate the prohibition of homosexuality will be to fight against imperialism. And the same with anti-Semitism. This makes me so scared. That's why my greatest fear is what I call, that's why I mentioned them as was attacked, what I call literally Zionist anti-Semites. People, and Trump was this, he supported Israel there. You take Golan Heights, they move there. But at the same time, in the United States, he was supported by so many anti-Semitic organizations, grassroots, like Proud Boys and so on. And there is a long history. Do you know the guy, Monster Breivik, the guy who killed 10 years ago when in Oslo?
Anders Breivik,
yeah, so you can pronounce it more correctly. It's very interesting. My Norwegian friends send me pages from his 1,000 pages crazy manuscript, where he says, in the Middle East there, we should totally support Israel. We should push Israel into destroying the Aqsa, that big mosque, build a new temple there, because they are a wall keeping barbarians from Europe.
All right,
Here, Jews are a problem.